Hello. I don't know if I don't know
Hola.
if I should have waited before I said hello, but hello.
Hola. We are live.
It's been
Yes, we are live.
it's been way too long because
Because we
I
can't get
work
her.
too much.
And my wife is back to work, and so a lot of times, like last week, she did 3 doubles.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, she did an 11-hour, a 12-hour, a 13-hour,
Right.
and
Yeah.
she's gone the whole day, and then
When you work in a service or hospitality industry, the what's really bad right now in the hospitality industry is even though there was, I think, 12 states now so far that have done it, they've eliminated that extra $600 that you get to stay home on unemployment. They even though they eliminated that, people are still staying home and living off unemployment versus going back to work.
yeah, why would
And
you
it's
go back to work?
mostly in the hospitality or service industries.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why, my wife worked at Kohl's for so long, and I used to tell her this the same thing. From working at Frito, working at a place where I was getting paid almost $20 an hour, and I knew what a good paycheck was for the labor that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I used to tell them, hey, you want somebody to go nonstop for 8 hours with a half-hour lunch or something, little micromanaged 15-minute break, where they start the break as they left the floor,
Right.
and they're supposed to be back on the floor in their spot. So you're talking about the 2-minute walk, 3-minute walk back to the break room,
Right.
back and forth. So these type of things, and it's like, and then you want to pay them
Right.
$8 an hour, and you want them to go and have everything cleaned up and do. So you know what? If I'm doing that job, I'm folding that shit like I'm a Moseian in the West. I don't get no.
Right.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
A 7 an hour, an 8-hour job gets 8-hour labor. That's I fold this, I fold that, I move on to the next one. I fold this, I fold that. I ain't gonna.
Right.
It's like these and then these managers. It's like, well, I can fold it faster, so do it.
Right.
Well, it's not my job. Well, why not? I get paid too much to do it. Exactly. So shut up and go away. You know what? Fire me. I'll go to the next department store and do it for this price.
Right.
It's like, you want them to fold faster?
Pay them
Pay
more.
them more.
Pay 'em
And then
piece
they'll
rate.
feel invested.
Pay them piece rate, and then they'll really fold.
Oh, yeah. They'll be knocking shit over. So they can fold it over again. Fold it up again. But it's funny how people just kind of look at me when I say stuff like that, like, oh, how could you possibly say such things? Especially when I talked about self-employed people, like,
Right.
like I knew a guy who was a doctor, and he'd be upset when his nurse had to call in sick. He was all put out, and I was like, oh, boo-hoo for you. But how many times has a family issue come up, and he's probably called and said, hey, I'm not going to be there today. Rearrange on my schedule. And it's just like, oh, it's okay for you to, but heaven forbid they call off when they're sick or something.
Right.
You're so put out. Oh,
We before we turned on the camera
oh yeah.
for everybody, we were talking about a subject which I think is great for storytelling. Once again, we try to keep this channel about stories and storytelling. Problem is life bleeds into stories, and stories bleed into life. That's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it.
Tangent monsters.
Politics and everything kind of bleed together. But what we were talking about was people's motivations, because we were complaining about some people. But we were talking about what motivates people in certain situations where if you're an actor or something and some person says, okay, your character does this, as an actor you might say, well, my character wouldn't do that. I don't understand why my character would do that. And you really just have to find that motivation. Some people's what their bottom line is, and what they have to go through in their mind to justify those actions. And in fact, I've talked about it on here before. Probably, I don't know how many episodes we've done, but back in the very beginning, one of the stories that I want to do, and I don't want to say that it's a self-help book, but at the same time, I want to do a story. It's called The Path, and I have it all outlined, and I want to do it as a story form, but it's really about, I believe there is a path to evil for you to do an evil act, be that killing somebody, be that stealing something. Those are evil acts where you're acting out against somebody else. Even just flicking them on the ear, that could be considered an evil act. But what is that path, and are there warning signs along that path that tell you that you're on the wrong path? And so that's one of those things that I've been working on. And one of the biggest words that I think is scary.
Marty would have made a great pastor.
One of those things that I think is scary is the word justify, because there's things that we do in our own mind when we're thinking about things where we're justifying our actions. Some new kid, this is actually from the outline that I have in my head. Some new kid comes into school, and you're a teenager, and you're, going to school, and this new kid, everybody starts to talk to him and stuff, and, your first reaction is that you're kind of afraid because he's getting all the attention and you're not. And, so it's just like, Yoda from Star Wars, fear leads to, hate, hate leads to, anger, blah, 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 blah. That's, the how the, path works or whatever. But there's one point where you're going to say to yourself, well, I should, steal his bike, or, go throw that in the lake or something like that, whatever it is. And you justify it in your brain that, he's a bad guy, so it's okay that I do this. And, it's amazing what people can justify. People justify their actions all the time. And it's, horrible shit that they're doing, And,
well, what's fascinating is oh, you done?
Yeah.
Well, because we used to have these, obviously we have talks.
Yes, we have long-winded, deep talks,
and we go over we go back and forth on stuff, and it's great. So it makes hanging out so fun. But I remember a long time ago having this discussion, and so TV shows have definitely gotten a lot better over the years.
There was a brief period where everything was a reality show, and that sucked.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell happened to writers?
Though, is just like I lament that there's no shows like Leave It to Beaver on anymore.
No, Cosby was the last good show like that.
For children to grow up learning these absolute goodness things, and I go back and I try watching, those shows sometimes, and I call them sugar sweet. They're like so saccharine. They're so sweet that it's hard to watch. It's like so sickening, It's
right.
But
it's something to aspire to be.
Right. And so because of that, I don't watch them. Mm-hmm. But there used to be a time in this country where on these shows and things like that, they talked about a code, type of a thing that Americans supposedly lived by, and just people that we thought were better and things like that. And I feel like that show 24.
I've seen 3 episodes.
Right, and you know what made me turn off 24 was when Jack started torturing to get the truth out of somebody. And I remember having philosophical discussions with people about, well, you got to do that in order to get the truth out of them.
Right, the ends justify the means type thing, yeah.
Ends justify the means. And it was like, growing up, all the shows I watched was, doesn't matter.
Right, the ends don't justify
The ends don't justify the means. In fact,
right.
you know, if we can't save them, we couldn't save them, but we did everything we could to save them. It's like, you know, Batman, the whole idea of, oh, so he never uses guns or he doesn't kill people, you know, is he understands that if he does, he's going over a ledge that he can't come back from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I think we've gone over that ledge.
Fuck yeah. I mean, we're in free fall right now.
We've gone over this ledge where I don't know, we justify all these horrible things that we can say to people who do things, and
oh yeah,
and
that's one of the worst things about you know, media and being online and all that kind of stuff is, you know, in comments, you know, the justification in comments is you can make any comment you want because you're not really attached to those words. You're incognito. Nobody knows who you are.
As long as you label the person
right
something, you can say whatever you want to them, you know. I mean, and
I know, and that's how arguments are won nowadays. Is you know, if you can stomp the shit out of somebody, you know, if somebody has this intelligent argument about something, you know, you could destroy their argument just by calling them fat. It's
well,
like, oh, okay,
not so much that, but you call them
racist.
Yeah, racist or anything. I was watching this guy. I love watching reaction videos. I like watching like people who don't generally watch a certain type of movie or listen to a certain type of music. Now reacting to listening or watching. So I was watching this one guy who, on the outside, you would never peg him for a Jordan Peterson fan.
Nice.
If you know who Jordan Peterson is, he's a intellectual psychologist from Canada.
Yep.
But so I was watching react to him talking to these two women about feminism, and that's pretty much, oh gosh, I'm losing my train of thought.
We need to get you a better class of drugs.
We do. But what we were talking about?
Justification
Right. For
actions.
For action. Yeah. Dang it.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, Jordan.
Feminism.
Right. I can't. Nah, it's damn it.
We lost it. Damn
we
it.
Lost it. But he pretty much.
He needs a faster processor.
Well, I just need to remember what we were talking about right before. How I got onto that idea.
I don't know.
I lost it.
Anyway.
But
yeah, I mean, you know, I remember there was this funny, it was a documentary about Seinfeld when they were filming Seinfeld, and when I can't remember the actor's name, but the one that played George Costanza, Jason Alexander. They were interviewing him about, you know, when he first started that role, he didn't know who he was playing, but when he read the script, it sounded like a Woody Allen character. So if you watch the very first episode of Seinfeld, it is obvious he is doing an impression of Woody Allen. And it's true. I've watched the first episode, and he is doing a spot-on impression of Woody Allen. And then, you know, as the days go by to weeks or whatever, and they're doing another episode, the director and script, you know, he's reading the script, and the character's doing something that he thinks that Woody Allen would never do. And he's like, I don't understand this. I would never do this. George Costanza would never do this. And then can't remember the name of the character that it's based on. Real life character, Seinfeld's friend, comes to him and says, well, that's exactly how it happened. And that's exactly what I did. And that's when Jason Alexander kind of smacks himself in the head and goes, oh, I'm playing you. And so from that point on, he's, he changed the way that he acts and everything for that character, and started being more, God, I can't remember his name. He's done other shows. He's bald. Can't remember his name.
Oh,
Fuck.
He's playing Larry David.
Larry David, yes, that's who he's playing. And
that's George. George is Larry David.
Yes, Larry David is George Costanza.
I didn't know that.
Yes, because in real life, Larry David and Seinfeld hung around with each other all the time.
Right.
All of the stories, everybody always says that that's a show about nothing. Well, it's really a show about all the shit that they used to do together. All the stupid shit. That stupid voice thing. Hello! That was, just stupid shit that they used to do. Yeah. So, yeah. But, motivations. Like I said, I think it's lazy writers who don't explore those, what motivates those different characters to do what they're doing. Because, everybody can say that, oh, that character shouldn't be doing that or that character shouldn't be doing that. But, if you explore the motivations behind it, then, you can see why they are doing what they're doing. In fact, I actually talked about that on the last a video quite a few videos back. Was I always wanted to write a script about a kind of a scary movie where the movie starts out with this guy killing somebody in the most gruesome way possible, and then you see in a series of flashbacks, so it goes from it goes backwards, just like Memento, that movie Memento, if you've ever seen it. So it's basically filmed completely backwards, where you see him doing all these horrible things, and then it jumps backwards, and you find out by the end of the movie, which is the beginning, that his wife or something was killed, and blah 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 blah, and she was tortured, and and it was after he did the investigation and found out who did it and all that kind of stuff, and went through the whole process of burying his wife and seeing the brutality of her murder, so now all those actions at the very beginning that made you sick, it's justified. And I thought that would be a kind of a cool way to do a slasher film.
There's an interesting one that's coming on that why do I always think of his he was why can't I think of his? I can never remember his freaking name.
What's the movie, or what's the?
Oh, it's a horror movie where, when he's pretty much like Jason, like Friday the 13th,
right,
and he kills this girl, but when he does, they swap bodies.
Oh, Freaky.
Yeah,
and
Freaky.
that's I watched that just about, well, I guess almost a month now ago.
Oh, really?
But what's his name? Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn. Oh my God.
God, but Vince Vaughn is fantastic in that movie.
Is he?
Have you seen it?
No, I just seen
You
the
haven't
preview
seen it?
for I just saw the preview for it.
Oh God, it's great because Vince Vaughn, he at the very beginning, he has this mask on, and it's typical slasher shit because Vince Vaughn. I mean, I don't know if anybody knows this. Vince Vaughn's 6'5". He's my size.
Yeah, he's
huge. He's a gigantic man. And when you put him on a screen with all these other regular size actors, he's an intimidating looking dude. And which reminds me, there's another movie he did, another little independent film where he's in prison. and he's fighting a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Is
I
it?
can't remember the name of it. I'll figure it
I
out.
think I know what you're talking about.
But he's a absolute beast in that movie. But anyway, so the movie starts out where he's, this typical, like you said, Jason type killer, and he's just slashing and killing people in the most creatively sadistic ways possible. And then there's this there's this girl. She's hanging out with her other friends, and they happen upon his path of destruction, and he chases her into a museum, and is able to grab her and push her down, type thing. And there's a display case where there's this blade. The blade itself is looks like obsidian rock. It looks like it's an old Indian thing,
Mm-hmm.
and the handle is bone. It looks like human bone, and so he breaks the case open, grabs a knife, and chases her down because she gets away for a second, and he chases her down, and he's in the parking lot, and he plunges it into her, and barely misses her heart. Ends up stabbing her right there, and when it stabs into her, he gets cut right, where the blade's supposed to go into her. It stabs her too, obviously, but he gets the same wound at that moment, and their souls switch. And they both wake up the next day, not remembering what happened, and from that point, it's great because it's Vince Vaughn playing a teenage girl.
Right.
And there's so many great scenes. Like there's this scene where she's taking a piss for the first time, with male appendage, and she's like holding it, and she's like, "This thing's so crazy," and she starts swinging it back and forth. All their friends are looking at it. It's funny, but yeah, it's a really good movie. And then of course the girl, she's actually the girl that plays the teenager. She's actually been in a scary movies before. Have you ever heard of a movie called The Babysitter?
Yes.
It's that girl from The Babysitter.
Oh, really?
And so she's already played a psycho killer in a movie. So of course, when they switch souls, she becomes a psycho killer. But what's great is the writers were really fun and had a lot of fun with it because they, she's not as big as Vince Vaughn, but in her brain she still is. And so every time she tries to kill somebody, she tries to overpower them, and it doesn't work. So she ends up getting her ass kicked a few times, and then she starts doing things that are more creative, dropping things on people and, hitting them with cars and shit like that, instead of, brutally attacking them.
Instead of just up front, Supermaning them.
Mm-hmm.
She has to start Batmaning them.
Right. So, yeah, it's a really good movie of that genre, the Freaky Friday and all that kind of stuff. That one was really good. I love it when writers, change genres. Like, for instance, one of my other favorite scary movies, which is not scary, it's actually an action movie, or not action, it's a comedy, is Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That is a very good one.
That is a hilarious movie.
Yes. And that actor, both of those guys are fantastic. It's funny, I was looking up that, I can't remember his name, but the guy that plays, I guess that's Dale, the big one.
The big one, yeah.
Yeah, he, I was looking at his, resume or whatever on IMDb, and he, the other movie that I saw him in is, because one of my favorite movies to watch, I can watch it over and over, is Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Oh.
And he was, he had this little bit part in it where they're filming the porn scene in the coffee shop, and he walks in, and he's a drunk football player. He was just at the Pittsburgh Steelers game. He's like, "Hey, can I get some coffee?" I was just at the game. Did you guys watch it? but he's great. So like, huck it, shuck it, football. Anyway, so I do have chapter 15 is where we left off. I can read that. One of the things I should say is ahead of time is the further we get along in the book that I've written, the shorter the chapters seem to be getting, because there's lots of stuff that I still need to fill in the editing process. As I've said before, when I write, I usually write conversations first. Then I go back through and I fill in all the background stuff, and the he said, she said stuff, and paint the picture of what's going on around them. So some of this, it'll be just conversation. So just to be aware. So it's chapter 15. It's The Wood Watchers is the title. Chapter 14 was, I don't remember what the name of the 14th chapter was. Anyway, so starting off here, chapter 15, The Wood Watchers.
Wasn't the Elven battle?
It was I don't know if it was about it was about the dragons, but anyway. So then addresses King Markon at the Halfling village. Sire, all the soldiers are being held at the castle. Forest Town has been taken. Only women are left. Where is the goblin main army? Once again, I haven't, that's the king talking, but I haven't said that. Anyway, the main force has been separated in two, half at the castle, half at the Forest Town. We will free our people at the castle first, Markon declares. Taser. Yes? I was hoping to have more of an army, but I am left with little choice. I beg for your assistance. Will you help us? My people no longer want to live as slaves. We must defeat the goblin army. My army is at your command. Well, let us prepare for war. Max steps forward. Sire, I need a weapon. No, Max. You will travel to Jesse's tavern and search for help. Tell them what is happening. After we defeat the goblin army at the castle, we will march toward Forest Town. Our army will attack from the north. Their troops will be forced south. You must have an ambush ready. Sire, the tavern hasn't got any soldiers, just women. Jesse is a magic user, and you are a magic user. The rest of them can shoot a bow. I'm sure you can set up an ambush. Now go quickly. The elves lead the halfling army towards the castle. A total of 20 golden dragons and 200 halfling soldiers. The remains of the castle are visible from the edge of the woods. The goblin guards patrolling the perimeter of the city walls freeze as they see the approaching army. Then they scramble into the gate, and the sound of trumpets echo into the air. They've seen us, sire, Taz announces. Yes, prepare for siege. The halfling army spreads out into ranks while marching towards the elven city, while the golden dragons and King Markon remain at the edge of the woods. The goblin knights mounted on their red dragon steeds erupts from inside the city walls. 15 of them fly high into the air, circle, and dive toward the approaching halflings. The aureate dragons respond, flapping their mighty wings and soaring up to intercept the approaching goblin knights. The red dragons spew flames at the approaching flock, but the aureate dragons are unencumbered by a rider and able to react quickly. The goblin knights are overcome by the speed and agility of the opposition and begin falling from the sky as they are forced from their saddles. The red dragons are lost without their riders and do what instinct tells them to do, fight or flee. The goblin army exits the city gates and charges the halflings while they hold their ground. Weapons are drawn. Arrows streak from the castle, showering the halfling ranks, exploding as they hit. Halflings wail as they are tossed through the air by the explosions. From the edge of the forest, Taz addresses the king. Sire, what is it that they are using? I don't know. It is some kind of explosives on the arrow. The goblins have based their entire technology on dragons and used the chemical secretions from them to make their weapons more dangerous. Dragons, much like snakes, are able to secrete a poison from a sac in their throat. The chemical bursts into flame as it comes into contact with oxygen. The halflings have no choice but to charge. They will be safer in close quarters with the goblin soldiers. They rush forward as the goblins unsheath their weapons, their swords igniting in the air as they come in. Bleh. Their swords igniting as they contact the air. The goblins' army rushes to the halflings, swinging their flaming blades, pushing through easily. Halfling soldiers roll on the ground, trying to douse their flaming wounds. This chapter is going to go by quick, I can tell, because there's not a whole lot. You'll get the gist of it here, but anyway. Vin cautiously climbs down the inner wall at the rear of the elven city and makes his way through the city till he can see the goblin archers lined up along the front wall. Most of the buildings lining the walls are burnt to the ground. Directly in front of him, Vin can see the crater that swallowed the castle. He looks around but cannot see a building big enough to hold prisoners. He must find them. Goblin archers fire another volley from the wall toward the battlefield. Vin watches as a goblin walks among the archers, removing vials of liquid from a large sack and handing them to the archers. The archers tie the vials to their arrows in preparation for the next volley. Vin moves quietly, advancing on the archers. When close enough, he hurls his staff like a javelin toward the sack. The staff smashes into the sack, and the archers turn as they hear the glass shatter. Boom. The goblin carrying the sack is torn violently apart as his body his body separating into flaming pieces. The goblin archers are expelled from the wall, falling from their perch to the ground below. The archers caught in the blast wave don't get up, while others feebly push themselves to their feet. Vin opens the ground beneath all but one. The remaining goblin archer is still groggy as Vin starts questioning him. Where are the prisoners? I'd say that the goblins were, kind of smart in the fact that they were using that substance from the dragons, but at the same time, something that explodes when it contacts air can be kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Helena steps down onto Lucius's chest, her feet changing into the talons of an eagle. She jumps into the sky as she completes her transformation. Lucius is carried away from the struggling Paul and bloodthirsty woodwatchers by a giant eagle. He doesn't dare struggle against the claws pushing against his heart and throat. The eagle sweeps down to a small clearing in the woods, dropping Lucius on top of a large tree stump. The eagle lands, changing back to Helena. Lucius tries to get up, but is shoved back to a lying position by Helena. You can't leave. This is the perfect altar for our sacrifice. Sacrifice? Yes, I am sending you back to the earth. You will never be able to harm it again. She closes her eyes as she holds Lucius to his death altar. Lucius watches as Helena's outstretched hand starts to change. Slowly, claws protrude from her fingertips, becoming 3-inch blades. All the fighting, running, and struggling has caused Lucius's vision to blur. He concentrates on controlling his breathing, and his vision comes into focus, allowing him to see Helena's energy pattern and the concentration of the energy around her hand. He can feel the inevitable. He can't overpower her. He watches her energy spreading toward him. That's when Lucius realizes energy. Paul struggles to push away the predators, pinning him to the ground. He can feel the claws and talons tear through his armor and into the flesh on his legs. He kicks at his attackers, hoping to push them back far enough so he can resume a standing fight. He shuffles back along the ground, retreating to a tree. He slashes a snake He slashes as a snake strikes at him, catching its throat. Blood sprays across his armor as a wood watcher falls to the ground in front of him. He slides up the tree to a standing position as his attackers pause to rethink their advance. The beasts push each other about, fighting for the best positions. The sheer number makes it impossible for all to attack at once. Paul hurls his dagger into the closest attacker. It glints in the sunlight before slamming into the woodwatcher's chest. Paul draws his sword, ready to continue the fight, wanting to take as many of them with him as possible. Vin peers around the corner of a white marble wall. Down the hallway, he can see goblin soldiers pacing in front of the dungeon door. The goblins are keeping the elven soldiers trapped in their own dungeons, which makes sense since the dungeon walls have been lined with steel to keep elemental magicians from using the earth element to escape. Metal is forged and shaped by the heat and fire. The process turns it from a natural element into an unnatural one. The guard paces up and down the short hallway in front of the dungeon. As he reaches the end of the hallway and turns to make his return trip, Vin retreats back around the corner as not to be seen. The guard's footfalls grow louder as he moves closer to Vin's position. The goblin stops just short of the corner and turns to march the other way. He takes 2 steps and falls to the floor with a thud. Vin stands over him, wielding his staff like a club. He searches the unconscious goblin for a skeleton key to the heavy metal dungeon door. The halfling soldiers fall back, trying to regroup as the goblins continue mowing through them. The battlefield is covered in the stenchy smoke of burning flesh. King Markon and Taz watch from the edge of the woods. The king shifts uncomfortably in his saddle as the anger boils deep inside. He pulls his sword and prepares to charge in. "Sire, you cannot," Taz screams in defiance. "Taz, those are my people dying out there. I will not let a race of people die for our cause. This is our fight. I must go." King Markon kicks his horse and charges down the small hill towards the battlefield. Taz draws his sword and follows. Their horses race down the hill into the cloud of smoke, unable to see Markon. Unable to see, Markon uses the sounds of battle as his compass. As he charges blindly forward, his horse whinnies, stopping so suddenly it almost throws him from the saddle. Taz and the king kick their horses in frustration, trying to make them move, wondering why the horses would stop. The answer comes from the sky. The ground shakes as a red dragon crashes in front of them. The dragon spills open from the impact, sending blood and intestines across the battlefield. More red dragons rain from the sky, landing around the outside of the battlefield, but some land directly in the action. The giant bodies crushing halflings and goblin soldiers. The battle stops for a moment as the soldiers run wildly, looking for a place to hide, safe from the falling monstrous corpses. The goblin soldiers fall back to the castle as pillars of fire from the aureate dragons rain down onto them. The remaining halfling soldiers stare up through the smoke and haze as the dragons sweep out of the sky in a V formation. Goblin soldiers scatter as fire erupts around them. The lucky ones make it to the protection of the city wall, running through the gate and slamming it shut. They try to catch their breath, feeling a little safer, hiding under the small archway. They can see the shadows of the dragons move across the ground. "That was close. Are you okay?" one goblin soldier asks, turning to his friend. His friend doesn't answer. He stares into the city at the castle crater, a look of amazement and fear plastered on his face. He swallows forcefully and drops his sword to the ground. "What are you doing?" Speechless, the goblin points into the city at the 100 elven soldiers, teachers, and students marching toward their position, led by Vin. Stellit crawls out from under the pile of dead woodwatchers, blood dripping from his teeth and claws. The woodwatchers left him wounded and unconscious, assuming he was dead. He can hear fighting in the distance as he moves among the corpses, searching for his brother, trying to remember where he saw him fall. A few feet away, a mound of corpses wiggles and moves. He shuffles quickly over, grabbing first the corpse by the ankle and pulling it from the pile. He smiles in relief when Stern pushes his way out of the pile. Lucius concentrates, using his energy to push back against Helena. She is pushed away in surprise and watches Lucius as he stands up from the tree stump, shocked he isn't running. She watches his energy move across his body, changing the shape of his arm. Unwilling to give Lucius a chance, Helena lunges, slashing him across the face with her claws. Lucius reels backwards in pain as she continues her attack, changing into a gargantuan yeti and grasping him by the head and tossing him through the air. He tumbles through the air and slams into the earth, hands reverting to normal. He can hear the rumbling approach of the yeti and turns on his knees as the yeti lunges at him. His class lessons flood into his mind, and without thought he blends into the energy flow of the attacking beast. He moves with the creature, increasing its speed and starting his first turn as he holds gently to the yeti's arm. The yeti is forced into a circle around Lucius, speed ever increasing. The speed is too much for the yeti, and it stumbles, trying to regain its balance as it runs solidly into a tree. Helena slumps to the ground, trying to catch her breath. She looks up to see Lucius waiting just a few feet away. She pulls herself up by a low-hanging branch and transforms back into the yeti. The yeti rips the branch from the tree and uses it as a huge club. Lucius dodges the branch with ease, watching Helena's energy as it gives away her intention. The yeti hurls the branch at him as he ducks and rolls under the projectile. His roll brings him closer to Helena, and she stomps her huge yeti foot down at his head. Lucius rolls to one side, but the yeti paw seizes him again, raising him from the ground, squeezing his throat. Lucius concentrates his energy on his neck, giving it strength, but the yeti squeezes harder. Lucius can see the determination in the yeti's eyes. He concentrates harder, sending more energy to his throat. The yeti screams in pain, dropping Lucius to the ground, changing back to Helena. She stares in wonder at her bleeding hands, then at the bloody spikes protruding from Lucius's neck and the grin forming on his face. Helena reacts with rage, lunging at Lucius, her hands ready to claw his eyes out. Lucius stands his ground. As Helena's arms come into his reach, he raises his right arm. With blinding speed, a scream again echoes through the woods as Helena's arm falls to the ground, blood spraying from her stump. Lucius shakes the blood from a blade as it changes back into his hand. Helena has never seen such use of these powers. The woodwatchers practiced for years to be able to change into the shape of animal. The animals and the earth were their inspiration, the things they fought to protect. To watch a person use their energy to create weapons such as this was unheard of. She considered it evil and perverse. Paul slashes through the chest of a black bear, spilling its intestines and sending a woodwatcher splashing to the ground. A massive paw sweeps Paul into the air. He tumbles across the ground, slamming into a nearby tree, swords clanging to the ground. He shakes away the stars, focusing his vision and scanning the ground, looking for his weapon. A furry streak crosses his field of vision, slamming into him. The beast is too heavy to push off. It tears through his armor and into the meat below. Paul can feel other sets of teeth joining in the crunching of bone and ripping of muscle. He fades in and out of consciousness from the loss of blood. He wishes only to fall asleep, so he'll no longer hear the sounds. A scream echoes through the woods, and the woodwatcher beasts stop their feasting, straining to locate where the scream came from. A second louder scream fills the woods. The wood watchers, recognizing it as Helena, dash away into the woods to help their leader. Helena concentrates on her arm to stop the bleeding, knowing Lucius's capabilities. She can see only one way to kill him. She will have to use elemental magic. It is the only way to seize the advantage. Lucius watches the energy around Helena move from her hand to spread down to her feet, to the ground below, opening suddenly and burying him to his waist. He struggles to push himself out of the ground. Looking up at her, he says, "You used elemental energy." "Yes, I did. I must, to save the earth." "Your rules change to suit your needs. The world will forgive me." Lucius sinks further into the ground. He tries to calm his mind and reach out with the energy to manipulate the earth, but is unsure how to make contact. He takes a deep breath as his head goes under, and Mykno's words repeat in his mind. The true power is the ability to think under pressure. He can't change the earth, but to be able to change form still has advantages. He files through all the animals he can think of that live as burrowers. He can feel the earth still pulling on his feet. The earth has nothing to grab hold of. If the earth has nothing to grab hold of, I can get out, he thinks, forming into the smooth shape of a snake. He stops sinking. To climb out, I need something to help me push my way out. Small spikes protrude from the snake-like body. Using them as a paddle, he is able to push himself upwards through the ground. Helena sighs heavily, relieved to have Lucius in the ground. She walks to where her hand is on the ground, picks it up. Helena sighs heavily, relieved to have Lucius in the ground. She walks to where her hand is lying on the ground, picks it up and places it back on her arm. She concentrates and the severed arm begins to mend itself. She smiles and wiggles her fingers. Helena turns to find the source of the sound, shocked to see Lucius standing a few feet away. Earth didn't work. Let's try wind, she thinks. The wind swirls around Lucius. Leaves and dirt blind his vision, and the roar is deafening. Unable to resist the power of the dirt funnel, he is lifted into the air. Trees streak in and out of his vision and tree branches scratch his face as he passes through the branches, and they become thicker until he slams into the trunk of a tree and slides halfway down. The wind pulls at him hard. Unable to hold to the tree trunk, he is forced back into the air. He tries to think of what he could change into that would help. His mind swirls just as the earth does. More branches whip into and scratch his face until he slams into another tree. He digs his newly formed claws into the tree, but the wind swirls about him, pulling him away. He holds on to the tree long enough to find Helena's locations. His claws gash at the tree as he is pulled away. The world streaks by as he passes over Helena, slamming into the first tree. Previously broken branches make perfect little spikes that puncture into his arm and back. The pain is worse when he is ripped away from them and sent back into the air. He flies back over the top of Helena, heading for the other tree. He has to grab hold of her, but how from so high up? The second tree buries its branches into his leg and back. He is ripped away again, but as he flies over the top of Helena, he reaches out with his arm and energy. Stretching it out toward the target, he grabs tightly onto Helena's hair, and she screams as she is pulled into the air. The tornado starts to die out, but the remaining wind carries them towards the tree. Lucius pulls Helena's hair, forcing her body up Between him and the tree, Helena is unable to scream as the broken tree branch pierces through the back of her head. Lucius releases Helena and falls from the tree, hitting the ground and losing consciousness. The woodwatchers stare in disbelieving horror at their perforated leader. Her blood runs down the grooves of the bark, forming a pool around the motionless Lucius lying at the base of the tree. A naked female elf kneels over Lucius, placing her head to his chest. He is still alive, she declares, claws growing from her hands, preparing to plunge them into Lucius's chest. Stop, a male woodwatcher demands, grabbing her hand. He must die. He's killed Helena. There has been enough killing. Helena is dead. Helena is dead. She must be revenged. When will it stop? Helena is dead because she never stopped. What about the prophecy? True prophecies can never be permitted. If Mother Earth wishes the prophecy, we are unable to stop it. We are not as powerful as Mother Earth. Helena killed herself fighting against Mother Earth. But she was our leader. No, she wasn't. The Woodwatchers never had a leader in the past. We voted on every decision. Mother Earth was whom we worshipped. Now Mother Earth has restored us to the way we were. No leader. We are equal, and I ask all of you, do you want to kill this boy? The Woodwatchers look at each other for the answer. They look up at the body of their deceased leader, hoping for the answer. With reluctance, the group votes to spare Lucius. Two giant hawks tear Helena's body from the tree and fly away, with the Woodwatchers in a large flock. That was the end. But in this chapter, one of the things that I wanted to do, and I guess what's the best way to say this? We all know that the main bad guy is Len in the upcoming books. He's the part of the prophecy. And one of the things that I wanted to change in this chapter is I want Lucius to defeat Helena, but at the same time, he's outnumbered. And in this version, the Woodwatchers vote to spare him, which I don't think that they necessarily would. I think most likely they'd be pissed off and they'd probably kill him. But what I wanted to do was, he's unconscious and Helena's dead, and I wanted Len to appear out of nowhere and kill the remaining Woodwatchers to protect his own mortality. Because if Lucius dies, he'll never be born. So I kind of wanted to introduce that whole Terminator type story where, he's protecting his present by going to the past type thing. So yeah. But like I said, I haven't done it yet, but that's my intention of changing that.
Well, you could have you just had the scene end with them saying, he killed Helena, he's got to die.
Right.
And they're like, you're right.
And then
just cut it.
Right. Go to the next chapter.
And then they come upon him in the woods and they're like,
and everybody's dead.
What happened? And everybody else is dead. And so did he wake up and do it, or
right? What
happened? And then he just explained that later, what actually happened.
True. It's all true. Well, it's all bullshit that I made up, but it's true bullshit.
Yes.
Whatever that means. So anyway, that was chapter 15. Chapter 16 is titled "The Final Battle," which must mean it's pretty close to the end of the book. Anyway, what are you drawing? That looks like Lucius.
It's supposed to be. I'm just trying to.
Well, I wish I looked like that with my shirt off.
Especially at his age, right?
Right. Oh, I watched this kind of sad movie last night, but it was really good. It was mostly sad because, as I get older, and also, the fact that my dad died of cancer. But it's called The Hero, and it's Sam Elliott. You know who Sam Elliott is, right? Mr. Deep Voice, Mr. Mustache. Anyway, it's about an aging actor who at one time did a movie called The Hero, where he won awards for it and all that kind of stuff. But as time has gone on, he doesn't really work that much. He does voiceovers for barbecue sauce and stuff like that, and he has a daughter that doesn't really like him, because he kind of disappeared from her life as he was being an actor. And his best friend, who is also played by another actor that I love. Did you ever see Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
The boss. The actor's name is Oberman, I believe.
Oh yeah.
That guy. He plays Sam Elliott's drug dealer, basically. Even though pot's legal, he still likes to go to him to buy the pot, and they just sit around and smoke pot all day. And so he gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which is probably one of the worst ones. The survival rate is pretty low. And he's called at one point. His agent calls him and says that the Cowboy Historical Preservation Society wants to give you a Lifetime Achievement Award. And he's like, okay. He's like, I guess I can go to that, but I was hoping you were calling because you have a job. Is there any other work I can do? And he's like, no. And so you know who Laura Prepon is, that actress? Well, one day when he's over at the drug dealer's house smoking, she comes over to get some pot also, and they meet, and she, even though she's younger, she finds him attractive, and they start dating and stuff. But it's a really, really, really good movie. I mean, there was way too many scenes where they weren't trying necessarily to be dramatic or sad, but God, you just can't help but start crying, and some parts of that movie, it's like shit.
Yeah, there was another one.
But Sam Elliott, man,
it was kind of
when he cries, I mean, I know he's just acting, but God dang, it's so. I mean, that was one of the things that made me fall in love with that TV show, The Ranch, because there's that one scene where he, what's her name, the ex-wife leaves, and he's out there chopping wood, and he turns to his son, and he's like, "Am I really that hard to live with?" And he's just bawling like a little girl, and then Danny Masterson's line after that was great. He's like, "Oh, come on, Dad, you can't ask me questions like that."
Which is, yes.
But anyway, that's
sad, right?
Right. It's such a great movie.
There was a movie. It was pretty much almost the same type of thing where old time actor aging. He got invited to a film festival for his movies.
Right.
And he's dying, forgotten.
Right.
But these people are holding a film festival and invited him to it. And so he decided he would go. And when he gets to it, realizes that it's like in a bar.
Right.
And it's just really just faint. It really is a fan. I mean, like.
Right.
And it is a sad. It's one of those like
right.
This how fickle fame is, whatever.
Well, that was one of the coolest things. One of the coolest scenes in the movie is he goes to this thing with Laura Prep on his arm, and she gives him Molly before they get there, and because she says, well, once this stuff kicks in, everything will be happy. And so, and it is, and he's able to relax and stuff. But he gets up on stage and he says, lifetime achievement. Well, I wanted to look up what it means, the word achievement. And so I looked it up on Google. And according to the dictionary on Google, it's the achievement of it says it basically it takes a lifetime. And he's like, I've only ever been proud of one movie that I was in, and I don't really feel like I've achieved anything. And I look out there and somebody screams out, I love you. And he's like, I love you guys too. Because I want you guys to realize I am truly nothing without you. And then he's like, everybody out here, because everybody in the audience is older. He's like, everybody out here has achieved in life. And he's like, I think we need to celebrate everyone. And he's like, and he points out to the audience to some lady that's standing there. And he's like, you, ma'am, can you come up here? And he brings this woman up on stage and he asks her name and she's like, Betty. And he's like, okay, and he's like, and he asks her how old she is. And he's like, I want to present you with this Lifetime Achievement Award. And he gives it to her and he starts cheering for her and everybody starts cheering for her. And then, of course, that video goes viral and stuff. And so it becomes relevant again. But it's a really, really cool movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it, and it doesn't really even end on a, he's able to kind of make up with his daughter, but it ends right as he kind of starts on this new chapter in his life, which is most likely going to be going to chemotherapy and all that bullshit that goes along with it. So, but all the scenes with him and Laura Prepon are pretty good. Where he wakes up one morning, the morning after that, doing the Molly, and she's asleep in bed next to him, and he wakes up and he asks her, "Did we do anything?" She's like, "No, we didn't do anything like that, but we did do stuff after the show. We went out to a bar and we had a bunch of drinks and all this kind of stuff." And she tells him about all that stuff, and then he's looking at her and he's like, "Why are you here?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "How old are you?" And she's like, "Well, how old are you?" He's like, "I'm 70. One." He's like, "You look like you're old enough to be my daughter." And she's like, "Well, how old is your daughter?" And he's like, 36. And she's like, "Well, I'm older than that."
I'm older than that.
So you never find out in the whole movie how old she is.
That's old enough, huh?
Right. Well, yeah. But I don't know why it is. And, we talked about this last time. Why it is, as you get older, I don't know what it is. Younger women are less complicated.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
it seems like it's easier for me to date younger women than older women. Maybe it's because more life experiences, can really mess with somebody.
Yeah, there's probably the baggage part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The not baggage. I shouldn't call it baggage, but
Right.
the if they've gone through a divorce, if it's been a jilted divorce, or and I'm not saying this is everybody, but a lot of people, if some of them are just messed up, and they've always been alone one way or the other. My wife's been watching this TV show Heartland,
Mm-hmm.
and the oldest daughter on there was just reminiscing back to all her love life on the show, and it's like, well, maybe you're just an ass, and that's the reason why you're alone still, and she and she was, I don't know if she was understanding that in her thing, but probably not, because that's the type of person she is. She wouldn't believe that she's the problem,
Right.
All upset at her husband, who worked in Vancouver when they live in Calgary, and when he asked her to move there, she said no because of because she's running a business, and why should she have to give up to move there, and bum bum bum. And then later, after they got divorced, now she's started up another business. She's taken this little restaurant that they have, national food chain type thing, and then she's dating some guy, and now she's gone all the time, and now it's everybody else's problem,
Right.
to pick up and work and do her, raise her kid for her, but it's somehow it's not her fault for being gone all the time, and it's just like, and it's been the last few years, so it's like you get in trouble, but that age of femininity, it's like, it's okay for us to do it now. It's like, well, if the behavior is not good, then it was never good, no matter who did it. So then, why is it okay now? It's just, so I think a lot of that comes in, and I always go back to what you're talking about with the younger girls, with the older guy too. Sometimes is we always know what the older guy's in it for, and a lot of times it's what the younger girl's in it for.
Right.
She ain't looking to actually settle down with that person. She's probably looking to have some fun, get some shit bought, do some things, and then maybe somewhere around 28, maybe start looking for somebody to settle down with. And even then, they're going to look probably someone closer to their age group. Maybe.
But what I think it is, and because you're right. I mean, everything you just said was right. But also, I think marriage is, in my opinion, it's tough to find somebody that, because people always, when I was married, because I was married for 15 years, people would always ask advice, oh, what's the secret to a long marriage and blah, 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 blah. And it's like,
fix that. Fix a lot of it before you get married.
Really, it has everything to do with a person's commitment to a partnership.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the love thing. Oh, true love will always win out. Which is, no. Because you guys always have to be partners working towards the common goal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, as soon as that partnership and the common goal changes or whatever, it just doesn't work.
Well, I tell Laura all the time.
And so nowadays, for me, it's easier, to just date versus trying to search for that commitment and partnership.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine.
Because I don't know if anybody has the same goals necessarily. You know, I mean,
Right.
I have, you know.
Well, I was telling, not, but before we were dating, one of the church leaders of the church, they were giving a talk, and we're talking about the fact that so you have a goal of getting, like you said, you have a goal of getting somewhere
Mm-hmm.
with this person,
Right.
and
Making a life, making a family, making
yeah,
a house.
but in the church, it's about winning the prize, about getting to the end, and getting what God has in store for you, prize thing, right? Type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in his talk, he said, there's probably up to 10 people in the world that you can get there with. And she was like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's star-crossed lovers. It's we're the only one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, maybe not, but if we work together,
Right.
we'll get there, type of thing. But in her brain, it was like, growing up, it's like, no, it has to be, it's only me. I'm the only one for you, and you're the only one for me, and so I don't know how much stuff like that, messes with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't think that was gonna work.
What'd you do?
Well, I changed his hand,
Uh-huh.
and I like the hand better. This hand here, I like it better, but it cuts his face off.
Oh.
And because of that,
Composition.
yeah, it doesn't look as good. But I did like the hand. I thought the hand was more expressive than the whatever that monstrosity I had drawn before.
Looks fine to me. It's okay to block a chin. No big deal.
Yeah. I kind of like the chin, though. Maybe let's see.
Yeah, it doesn't block it too bad.
Duplicate. And then I can... Oops. I forgot to turn it back to the pencil first.
Well, hell.
I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times. The fact that I don't know. The dating world is pretty complicated these days, huh?
Well, at least you don't have to be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't mind it.
I mean, it's got to beat.
It's funny. There's
I mean, not that, but I mean, it has to beat the alternative of being in a
loveless marriage.
I don't know about love, but I mean just a crappy situation.
Right. I mean,
because there's a lot of different reasons. There's people that are in love, but they're just toxic for each other, but they're still in love. For some reason, they stick around. I remember I was at work once, and I was talking to a guy about, he's a big old Catholic guy, but I was talking to him, said, sometimes divorce is the best thing for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, huh? I was like, I mean, all you're doing is torturing. You could be just torturing them by actually staying together.
Right.
and that was a foreign concept to him.
Right.
That could actually create a better environment for the kid than staying together.
Well, yeah, I mean, I understand, from his point of view, it's like, oh, well, kids have to bounce back and forth between two houses, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's all true and everything. But, yeah, staying in a house where, people are physically violent toward each other, is not
physically violent or just verbally abusive, right. Yelling and screaming,
Right. So, yeah, you're right.
I didn't grow up in that. So, in fact, I tell people all the time, I think the worst argument I ever heard or went something like this. Keith broke his arm in 1967. No, it was in 1968. No, I think it was in 1967. No, I think it was because it wasn't when we lived over here. No, it was that
was the argument, huh?
I was like, man, if they ever argued, we never ever heard it.
Yeah, my parents never really argued much either. I mean, when they did, you would, the person that would know more than anybody, any of the other kids was Angie, because she's the oldest, and if they were, not talking to each other, they would send each other mean notes, and Angie would have to deliver them.
I've said before, I served an LDS mission, and there's this thing that they talked about a while ago in the church it was the best 2 years of their life.
Oh, for a mission?
Yeah, and I've often caught people off guard by saying, I don't know if it was the best 2 years of my life. Might have been the most important. And my dad was like, what do you mean? Like, well, I think the best 2 years of my life has been with my wife so far. But the most important is damn, did I know exactly what I was going to be able to live with and what I wasn't going to be able to live with. I just learned behavior traits about people and things like that. And it was like, if I'm going to be stuck with somebody 24/7, because that's what your companion, you're stuck 24/7. You can't. You're not even supposed to eat in a different room. You're just because when people are alone, they do things,
right.
Especially young stupid boys, and so I learned quick. So when we were dating, if there was something that she would do that really is like
annoyed you,
that so annoyed me that it was gonna be a deal breaker, is either I can either try to curb it now and fix it, or if it can't, then
or run for the hills.
Run for the hill, yeah. I wasn't gonna, and so I changed a little here, changed a little there, and then you learn what you can live with, what you can't, and you're like, I can live with that. That doesn't bother me as bad, but that has to stop now. There's a couple things. She used to smack me in the head. Girls, like smack you when you make a joke. But she would smack me in the head, and it just, I don't know why, but my dad had a thing about poke him in the face and poke him in, he just,
right.
So I picked it up from him, and I remember she smacked me once, and I turned to her and I said, only little girls hit. And she was like, and she thought about that. Yeah, I don't know. Stopped. She didn't really hit me anymore.
Right.
Doesn't, it was like, that was something that could later on,
right.
That, when you're not having a good time, things are, and she just starts smacking you, and you just snap, right? Because it's built up for. Well, I thought you didn't mind it.
Right.
No, I hated it. Whatever. So that's always the advice I've told people. It's like, hey, fix that shit early.
Mm-hmm.
If they're doing something that bugs you right now while you're dating to that extent, fix it now. Otherwise, it's just gonna fester later, because it does. It'll rear its head. And there's still stuff that's like, it drives you nuts, but.
Yep. Yeah.
Just like it's like who I can't remember if it was I think it was a comedian. I can't remember which one. And they talked about how to win an argument, how to win arguments with women, and they said you have to go in, and whatever the fight is about, you have to stay on target. And once you know when you've won the argument is when they switch
to something new. Right.
Well, that's because you were doing this and this. No, we're talking about this. If you want to talk about that and bring something up like that later, that's fine. Do it later. We'll have that discussion later. But right now, we're only talking about this. That one works. That works really good because you'll start an argument here and you'll wind up way over there.
Right.
And
yeah, I've been there.
My wife's talking to one of the kids at work, and he was talking, and he's dating, getting ready, thinking of getting married, and she was talking about how the argument thing, how we really never really argue, and blah 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 blah, and he's like, it's like, well, there's two things. You fix it early, right? Mm-hmm. Fix what is, and the other thing is tell him this. The last thing I ever wanted to do was sit there and you say one thing in an argument, and you'll spend the next 2 to 3 hours. It's not what I meant. Right. I wasn't meaning that. No, it's not what I. You don't have life for that.
Right.
Life is too important to sit and spend that much time. So I'd rather not get into things because I don't want to. No. No, you're just fine. I didn't really mean that. And blah blah blah. Oh no.
Yeah.
So.
But you're right. Like when people will switch in the middle of a conversation to a different subject, to try and prove their point about this subject that they, just switched from. It's like, that's, to me, that's how the human brain works. Because it's once again, it's that path. They're trying to find something to justify the way they feel about this,
right?
And sometimes you can literally look at somebody and you can see the wheels turning in their head, and they're searching for this thing that's going to justify, what they want to do.
It's trying to figure out how to re-win the argument.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think that's, these internal arguments that we have with ourselves. I think people
shut up, sit down, take a knee. You've won. Just run out the clock.
Well, I mean, with these arguments that we have with ourselves, about the right and wrong of something, people need to spend more time, and I think people need to recognize the signposts along the path and really stop.
Well, we were talking about this earlier about how do we write Town Called Liberty, that path book. How do we write any of this stuff so that it's not just preaching to the choir,
right?
Because if we're honest, it's not preaching to the choir reading material. Or, well, it I don't know if it is or not. I mean, preaching to the choir material would be, I think.
Well, I mean, we're right now we're writing it as short story picture books. But what I would really love more than anything is I would love to see this on a TV as a television show.
Oh yeah,
half-hour program, animated program. It'd be so cool. So cool. But yeah.
Right. So how does it? Where does it fit in that universe? Is like.
I don't know. I mean, because
is it a Twilight Zone show?
When I talk to we're talking about audiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, what we write, as far as like Shattered Time's concerned, is that will hopefully reach a bigger audience than something that's more of a politically driven story, because there's left and right, unfortunately. Even though in Shattered Time there are some left and right characters that people don't know until they read. But anyway, but when I meet people from the left, diehard leftists, most of them don't watch television shows and all that kind of stuff anyway.
Well, really?
Yeah. I mean, the ones that when I ran that bar in Salt Lake, and everybody that worked for me, I had quite a few of them that were diehard leftists, people that actually went out and protested.
Mm-hmm.
There was one girl that worked for me that was the actually one of the people that organized protests.
Really?
Got a hold of everybody and got them together as a group. Led the rah stuff. Yeah. Most of the time, as far as entertainment was concerned, their entertainment was going to a bar, drinking, talking to people. Not a whole lot of television watching. Most of it was just, working, protesting, that kind of stuff.
So,
and when you talk to them about stuff like, when you would bring up subjects like, communism and why it doesn't work, they could literally quote you every quote from Karl Marx and and other books, the Communist Manifesto and stuff like that. And it's like, it's funny because, you take a conservative, somebody from the right, and you tell them, hey, you should read the Communist Manifesto. They'll read it.
mm-hmm.
A conservative will read that just so he can see that other point of view and reaffirm that, I'm not communist.
Right.
But you take a leftist and give them a book, written by, Rush Limbaugh or whatever, and they won't read that. No way.
I keep saying this. It's amazing how that side parallels the religious right of the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's like this huge flip has happened.
It feels like the same damn group.
It is. It isn't, but it's the same because it's ideology, it's
right.
doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they're actually doing is religion,
mm-hmm.
is a religious thing.
Yeah.
What? So that's I think where you write your book is you write your book for the. There's this large middle class midsection of people that are being tossed to and fro.
Right.
That this is here and then that's here. The reason why Jordan Peterson took off so huge is he said has some life values. Have you need to create a base. Well, and once you have your base,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter when a wave crashes against it. It doesn't matter if winds come. It's still there. It's going to be strong. You can weather abuse, or you can weather fads and things like that. And nobody's telling this. It's like because of those shows aren't there that you grew up with that said,
right.
No, this is what we do no matter what. The whole we don't negotiate with terrorists, and then we just saw we just negotiated with terrorists for the last how many years?
Right.
The two trials that are going on right now in Minneapolis, those are negotiating with terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
all the cops letting people go by for writings, negotiating with terrorists.
Right.
They negotiated with those hackers. Those were terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
They paid them,
Right.
even though supposedly they got the money back. Yeah, right. But we there used to be a time when we didn't do that.
But as far as audience, I mean, sometimes this is going to sound weird, but I mean, I guess I can say it. I have a best friend who lives in Las Vegas, and he makes guns for movies. But I don't really write stories for someone like him, because he is super conservative. But the person that I think that I would be writing for is, and you've met him, Austin, because he's one of those people. I remember when we worked at PF Chang's together, we would talk about politics or the stuff that was going on at that time, which that was back when Obama first got into office and stuff, and what was great about him is, first of all, he was smart, and he had no preconceived notions about anything. He was a blank slate. So, on one hand, there was a couple of guys that worked at PF Chang's that were dyed-in-the-wool communists. They honestly believed that communism was the way that we should go. And and as a libertarian, I was arguing with them constantly. And it was just great to talk to somebody who had no opinion either way until you talked to him, and then you could tell him, both sides of the story, and he would, he would make up his own mind. So yeah,
I would think
Austin Green.
I would think I would write somebody like Austin. There's just this whole group of people out there, I think, that are, they don't. You can tell them every day the idea that hell is the road to hell is paved with good intentions,
right.
And they just don't understand what that means.
Mm-hmm.
But we could maybe show them what that means,
right.
And the way it's just, how do we do that in a society to show them this is where the society is going to,
mm-hmm.
incrementally enough that they can start seeing some of the things that they're talking about now and wanting to do,
mm-hmm.
how it pays off then.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because like the first story I wrote was the green energy one, and that was you write these things based on where you see things headed, and I wanted it to sound so not possible, so out of the ordinary, that I want certain people to read the story and say, that'll never happen. But then, as life goes on, they go, oh, wait a second, that is happening. Maybe I should revisit that book.
Right. That's happening.
Right.
So, yeah, but it has to be told, I think, it has to be told in such a way that they can actually, that it clicks in their brain.
Right.
Wait, that's actually happening.
Well, it's like,
because that seems to be the disconnect, right?
Do you remember that speech that Ronald Reagan gave?
Which one?
The one about, how he would, I don't know if it was Reagan. No, it was that radio guy, Paul Harvey, and he talked about, if I was, if I wanted to change this, blah, 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 blah. No, I think Reagan actually said something similar along the way. He said that people will know, nobody in America right now will accept communism. Nobody. You know, if you came to them and you said, "Hey, you want to be a communist?" Blah blah blah, but they will gladly accept, socialism and communism if it's presented to them as democracy. And it slowly changes over time. They will accept every part of it, and that's coming true.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, but
Because right now we are
the idea,
literally arguing to get rid of what they fought for in the civil rights movement.
Right.
They want to get rid of the civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, that's amazing. It's like now you want to go from, you want to resegregate society. Good job. Way to go. And never in a million years, I mean, if you were to say to me in high school that we were going to resegregate society, I would have told you you're a fucking idiot. Because, in high school, I grew up, and when I was in high school, the history I learned was Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all this stuff. And, Martin Luther King is a hero of mine. I would never in a million years believe that, society would go, oh, no, Martin Luther King, he was
My thing is, I don't understand how they expect to do it. Or, I mean, how do you do it with mixed race?
What do you mean?
Well, if you have to segregate,
you mean we've mixed the races so much now that how do you pull it apart?
Well, yeah,
because you're right.
I mean, what? So
because my kids are Korean,
right? Your kids are Korean or half
and
Korean.
white.
So your wife has to live on one side of the town.
Mm-hmm.
You have to live on the other side. Is there a middle section?
Right. That's what
that they live in.
Yeah, I know.
And then how do you actually set that up with all the different races in a city?
Right.
You can't.
You can't. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Like my.
So then, what do you have? Do you have a white section, a Spanish section, an Asian section? And then do you have just like this like leper colony off on the side, which is everybody that's 50-50?
Right. Yeah, I know.
Where probably society will actually function and flourish.
Because my yeah, that's true.
but not only that, but what about the people that say, fuck you, I don't want to do that?
Right.
And you have friends right now that are white, or you have friends that are black or Spanish.
Right.
And it's like, or you're, and you're married to somebody. I don't understand that it's a level of hate that we just don't get.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, part of me, and it's the deep down sick part of me because I've always been this way. I always feel the need to understand the way people are thinking. I mean, I don't have to agree with them. I just want to understand the thought process that they went through to get to the decision that they made. It's I don't know if I would say it's a failing of mine, but that's one of those things that I have a problem with. Sometimes it's best not to understand. But I
think it's always good to understand. The problem I think comes is when you don't know how to separate what you find out with oh, well, that's where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which happens to, I think, too many people.
But I mean, but yeah, I don't, to answer your question, how do we separate everything? That's I just don't get it because, going back to stories, every story that's ever written. I mean, as far as like Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it was wasn't necessarily racist, but it was two families, feuding that have been feuding forever, and the whole love conquers all type thing. These kids met and felt the way they felt. There's no way to keep two human beings, because that's what we all are. We're all human beings, from falling in love and having kids and doing all those things. We are going to segregate this, or we're not going to segregate. We're going to integrate this society. I mean, at least that's my solution for everything. And I've said it before. If we fuck till there's no races left, that's fine by me. So, although now we, as a society, are segregating thoughts. If you're a conservative, you're now the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're considered a terrorist, literally, because you have conservative thoughts. It's like, oh, thanks, man. So,
yeah, and I don't know where the actual end of that is. Is that this whole idea, this amicable split that they've been talking about? I mean, do we? What a horrible concept,
Well, I mean, do we do like Atlas Shrugged and just move all the conservatives to one place and have them flourish as a society and everybody else? I mean, because we already do that, because Chicago is
yeah. it'll already happen.
Detroit and stuff is in the absolute toilet, and that's because it wasn't run by a conservative. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's just how do you split the country up? That's the hard part. I don't understand how you split the country up right now.
It's funny though, because the people who honestly want this, to resegregate and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I gotta think that it's the loud. Maybe 15%.
It's not even that, probably.
But they're so loud that these ideas are being screamed, through the media, and it's like, everybody else on the planet is like looking at them like, would you shut the fuck up?
Yeah, I've said it, but. How much of the Revolutionary War was fought by what? 5%?
Yeah.
And then everybody had to go along with the results.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the thing. Is it's not how many. It's the right people that can get followers to follow them. So yeah, you're right.
So I don't know. I mean, what I mean by that though is the actual amount of people that actually are doing this might, it's like, can they win? They're winning in politics. And I don't understand it, but they're winning
because they control media.
Well, they control a lot of different areas. They control the narrative,
right?
And the way the narrative is, and I don't know, you can't tell what's real across everything.
Mm-hmm.
That you hear these stories of them. Of saying they've gone and polled people after something happened and said, well, if you actually knew that this had happened, would you have done what you did? Would you have voted that way, or would you have, would you follow this person? I'm like, no.
Right.
But, did that really happen? Did they really do that poll?
Mm-hmm.
They said they did, but,
Right.
I mean, who do you can't trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the point where you can't trust anybody, and then if that is true, then that's, I think, where Shattered Time and stuff like that comes in so handy. Or not Shattered Time, Town Called Liberty and things like that.
Right.
Is that this shit wouldn't have worked 30 years ago, and it didn't 40 years ago. Why? Because people looked at stuff and said, no. You know what I mean? They looked and said, you're a child throwing a tantrum,
Mm-hmm.
and you can cry all you want, but I'm not going to give you the candy.
Right.
Right now, they're just handing out candy left and right to whoever's crying.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. It's we've lost that core set of values that is going to come back to bite us in a major ass if we can't figure out how to educate this generation that's coming up right now, these teenagers
Mm-hmm.
that are going to start voting here in the next election cycle and the cycle after that. If we can't get to these ones, we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's who I think we should be writing, who we write these stories for.
Right.
Is we need to write these stories for these kids that didn't have, it's like that whole Jordan thing, one of his stupid tenets in his book is make your bed in the morning.
Yeah.
What, kids weren't told to get up and make their bed in the morning? I don't get up. My bed, look, my bed is not made over there right now.
Right.
But it's not because I wasn't told to get up and make my bed every day,
Right.
which I didn't. But but that was a lesson I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what people.
Well, sometimes
And he had boys from all over the world showing up going, I was never told about stuff like that. I wasn't told about picking myself up by my bootstraps.
Right.
I wasn't told about squaring my shoulders back, taking on life as it comes at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard, bearing your cross. All these type of little simple shit
Mm-hmm.
that aren't being taught. And
Right.
and it's going to take maybe us creatives
Mm-hmm.
trying to teach this to kids in a unique way
Mm-hmm.
that they'll understand. So maybe Town Called Liberty needs to be a superhero story. Maybe it needs to be something that
Well,
on the
I know
outside
what
it looks
you're
like
saying.
this, but on the inside we're teaching these core values.
Well,
and
I
stuff.
understand what you're saying because, like, one of the people I'm most proud of, and I don't even know the guy, but Sylvester Stallone. He started out as an actor. He did write the original, or helped write the original Rocky, but he didn't sell that script unless he was able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally he was able to do that. But one of the things that like I said, I'm proud of him was he has become a great writer. And in that it wasn't the last Rambo, but the one before it, where they go into China to rescue those people that were part of that religious group that were helping the people in China. He sneaks in all of that kind of, conservative values.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he dresses it up with lots of blood and action, which makes you want to watch it. But those core values are still there. And then one of the greatest speeches in a movie is the one that he wrote, which was Rocky, where he talks to his son, who's grown up now, and Adrian is dead, and his son tells him, all this stuff, you think that you're doing the right thing, but you're not, and it's just going to end badly for you, and it's going to end badly for me, and he's like, you think I'm trying to hurt you? And he's like, you don't think you are, but you are. And he's like, well, that's not what I've ever wanted to do, and he gives this speech, to his kid, It's like, I don't know if you know this, but life will beat you to your knees and keep you there. It doesn't matter, who you are. You're never going to hit as hard as life, and it'll beat you to your knees and keep you there if you let it. But it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And I know he stole that from, there's a famous football coach that actually said that, but still, those life lessons that he's, inserting into those movies are great. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, I personally look at A Town Called Liberty as our version of the old Grimm fairy tales, which were life lessons wrapped up in a story. So yeah.
I think about it like I think that's what they used Twilight Zone back in the day to do a lot too.
Yeah.
Was to show you think this is what utopia is supposed to be,
right?
Or you think this is what, but this is what's actually this is
right.
And that's what Peterson's talked about too. I can't believe I'm on Peterson so much today. But I know other people have bashed him for his delving into the Soviet Union and what made it, but it's like what you were talking about earlier about having to pathologically understand why you get to where you've gotten,
right?
And growing up in a time when they told you, well, just crawl underneath the desk and you'll be saved from nuclear blast,
right?
It does something to a kid, and it did something to him to a point where he was like, well, how does a society get to the point where that's acceptable talk, that's and so he's really done a lot of research on that, and because of that he can say things like, we know where this is headed. We have countless times of showing us that you'll come out of the other end with your communism intact, but you're going to kill
millions of people,
hundreds of millions of people. So in America, if you just got rid of everybody that voted for Trump, you're talking about 75 million people. And then how many people on top of that do you have to kill that said, hey, that's not right?
Right.
Then you got to kill those people too. I mean, you're talking about mass murder, and there are people who just can't wait to do it.
Because that's another thing that I was trying to figure out. Because if you look at the story that we wrote for A Town Called Liberty, first thing that we did was we created the city. Because the laws are such that nobody can actually go outside the city because it's trespassing on animals. But anyway, sometimes I feel like that eventually we're going to get to that point where there's everybody's going to be living on top of each other in these cities. Because it seems like that's always what happens with communism and stuff like that, But anyway, part of me wants to know how we get there. Is it going to be a giant war? Is it going to be a plague? Is it going to be what exactly is is going to push all these people to live in these protected bubbles? So I haven't written that. I haven't thought. I haven't given much thought to that backstory. But everybody's just there. It's sort of like that movie Demolition Man. They live in that town called San Angeles, which is San Diego, Santa Barbara, and Los Angeles have grown together, literally.
All right.
But yeah, these cities are, big cities with lots of people in them. But I don't think anybody's going. The more powerful a government gets, the more they're going to take away our ability to be alone. Because the hermit living out in the woods, they don't like that for some reason.
Nope. They already do.
They don't like people being self-sufficient.
No.
So, yeah.
It's just really weird. I mean, I don't understand. And the only way I can think about it and try to really delve into what it is, where does that mindset come from?
I don't know.
You know, and
to me, it feels like a kindergarten teacher.
Well, the only thing I can think of is I think of Atlas Shrugged,
Mm-hmm.
and the way she starts to describe the politicians at the end
Mm-hmm.
are just petty, vindictive people
Mm-hmm.
who don't want to work. You know who they always remind me of? They remind
Because
me
a politician's job is to convince the people that they deserve a job.
Well, yeah, but there's people. But the problem with it is that there's a job to be done,
Mm-hmm.
and people need to send people to go do the job. It's just we should be begging and pleading certain people to go do it, but instead we just settle and let other people go do it.
Right.
You know who these politicians always remind me of? It always reminds me of an alien invasion movies when there's that spineless weasel person that always tries to help out the aliens
Right.
so that they'll get favorable conditions
Mm-hmm.
when the war is all over because they think we're going to lose.
Right.
You know, that who is what
Mm-hmm.
is the type of person that I most associate with most politicians.
Right.
People like Pelosi and people like Schumer, they seem like they'll say and do anything
Right.
as long as it gets them what they want, or they're protected at the end.
Yep. They'll sell their children. Yep.
Yeah, well, they'll sell everybody else's children.
Mm-hmm.
They're not Agamemnon. They won't sacrifice their own kid, but they'll sacrifice yours.
Yeah. Yep.
He sacrificed Achilles for his ambitions. Supposedly he sacrificed his own kid, but I would highly doubt that. But maybe he did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, we've had people come around, are the type of people that we should have begged and pleaded and put in there, and those are the ones that we let people tell us are kooks and crazy.
Right.
You know, and maybe it's good that those people now that are the ones who told us that they were kooks and crazy, they suffer just as hard now. I think Glenn Beck was one of those people. He told us during 2008 that Rand Paul was a crazy old lunatic.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at him. We should all have been listening to him. Well, shut up. You did it for money. You know. Now look where we're at. Now you're trying to tell everybody, you know, you're trying to warn us of, well, you know what? We said back then, here's somebody that could really help.
Mm-hmm.
And you call them a crazy old nut. So,
Right.
and what's funny is you know who called them out on that shit? It was Alex Jones.
Well, that's good.
This called out Glenn Beck and people. He was like, that's where I learned. He's like, if you think these news organizations are your friend, you need to understand one very simple thing about news organizations. They are listed under entertainment.
Right.
It is not a public service.
Right.
They have there's no need for them to be honest.
Right.
There's no need for them to be
There's no law.
forthright.
There's no law that says that they have to be honest and
because it is considered entertainment.
Yeah.
And if you're not watching Fox News and watching it with a huge grain of salt, then you're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And when I don't know, I've gone around in circles with some people about stuff like that, and it's like, you think these people are there for you, but they're not.
Right. Yep.
I worry all the time about how things are gonna wind up, and I hope and pray that they'll be better than my overactive imagination, because I have a really good one.
Right, but it sucks when you keep on going. Maybe this will happen. Maybe this will happen, and you're right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it sucks when things like that happen, and then you just see the world a little differently.
Because that's one of the things that I'm wondering about doing in the town called Liberty. I mean, what if segregation exists in a town called Liberty?
Really?
Should we write that into the story? Should when we draw it, should we not have any black children, Chinese children? I mean, these are things that go through my mind, because maybe all the cities that they have, the ones that are left that the monorail goes to, maybe those are all just different populations of there's the black city and the Mexican city and the Chinese city, and there's the Korean city, and there's the Japanese city, and there's the should we write that into the story? Because if we follow the trend, as horrible as that sounds, and then but that brings up what you were asking was, what do you do with the mutts?
Well, I was just thinking that. I don't want to say it because then it would ruin the story. It would ruin it, but we've ruined everything anyways. You know that movie, The Sleeping Village, with Joaquin Phoenix, where they live in?
It was called The Village, wasn't it?
Was it The Village?
We're talking about M. Night Shyamalan, right?
Yeah, is that the one?
The Village, where the monsters live outside the village, or they think there's monsters outside the village.
And they're living in colonial time.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not true. They're actually living a sheltered life, and outside their walls is
reality.
Normal times. Yeah.
What if there's this vast amount of actual part of the country that is just
living their day-to-day life, and that's possible.
That'd be like crazy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But then these people growing up in these environments and cities don't know about it.
Right. Don't. Because, can you imagine growing up in a city where there's no other color? There's just white people. If you met a black person, you'd shit yourself.
Probably same way. Although in the other ones they have albinos.
But at the same time,
that'd be crazy.
At the same time, we have people that were traveling all over the world on boats, trading with other, populations, black, Asians, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Trading all these goods with each other, traveling around, and they didn't think that the people were disgusting because obviously they didn't think that because we started fucking until we were homogenized.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when I say I catch myself saying things like that, you know, that if you saw a black person, your immediate reaction would be blah. But I don't think it would be, because I mean, you know, you meet some black woman and she's probably the hottest piece of ass that you've ever seen, and you know, you're like, your first reaction is like, let's go on a date,
Right.
You know.
Well, it would assume that most of all the stuff is born out of class.
Right.
You know,
For the most part, I think you're right. I think money and class are the bigger contributions to wars and conflict than race has ever been.
Mm-hmm. And segregation, you know, slums and stuff like that.
Right. It
Because
has.
you can see it now. You can see when, you know.
Because to me, I've always broken down.
Oh well, I say
sorry.
that because who were the ones that were having sex with natives from other countries? It wasn't the captains.
Right.
It wasn't the upper class. It wasn't the upper class. It was the deckhands, right?
Right.
It was the regular Joe.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
They would meet somebody and.
Yep.
But.
And fall in love.
But
yeah, I mean, you know, I think humans are simple enough creatures to where we find other humans, you know, sexually attractive based on something that we don't even understand. And we don't start separating ourselves until money and class are involved.
Right. It usually seems where it's.
And you know, and that fucked up way of thinking, you know, is the same thing that keeps royal British people fucking their sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, it was a way to keep the wealth in the family.
right. But it's just retarded, you know, and you know it's funny. I think the way human beings are wired is there is no racism that's in you unless somebody teaches you that person is, because they're a certain color, that they're a lower class.
Oh, there is. If you looked at it from how some of these evolutionary biologists looked at it, there was the whole idea of anything that was different from you was trying to kill you.
Right. But
You know, if you know,
I don't believe that either.
You go on. Well, I'm just saying, you know. So if you go in the jungle, if it didn't look like you, it's trying to kill you. So then the idea of you see somebody, they're trying to kill you. But that, they're trying to talk about like 1 million years worth of caveman life, for that type of mentality. And then it's only been the last 10,000 years that we've had quote unquote enlightenment, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because I mean, you know, if you were to talk to somebody nowadays about critical race theory and stuff like that, I wholeheartedly reject critical race theory, because I am of the opinion, like I just said, that a human being is not racist. It's when they start assigning classes is where, you know. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because if left to their own devices, human beings are going to keep interbreeding.
right. That's what. It's the only thing I guess, if there's one thing that most humans have in common, it's breeding.
Right.
Right.
So yeah.
Let's see if this is what allows us to do this. Hopefully it's not too loud. We'll see if this works.
I don't know if anybody's actually hearing you on the. I mean, I see the thing jumping up and down when you're talking, but you're far away from your microphone.
So that's your microphone.
Right.
These fans are kind of cool. You're supposed to angle them, and then it comes around and hits you instead of just full bore just hitting you. But are you feeling anything?
Yeah, I feel it. Yep. Yeah.
Is it enough?
Sorry, guys. It was
Or is this better?
we were doing technical difficulties. We found out that the air conditioner does not work in this room because it sucks too much power, and we can't turn on the.
It's in the same.
It interferes with the.
Problem is, it's in the same part of
Right.
the same place that the computer's.
It's on the same circuit, and so yeah, we were getting really bad jumpy things with the camera.
Well, it wouldn't even let me turn the computer on.
Right.
With it plugged in, so.
Yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
I think left to their own devices, and all these leaders who are telling people that there's different classes of people, and that's those people are the ones that created racism and separation and segregation and all this bullshit stuff.
The same ones trying to keep it going.
Yes. So because I wholeheartedly believe that if there was if it was complete anarchy and everybody was just living together hunting for their own food and living you would find tribes of people that were every different race, and then they would interbreed until they were all one homogeneous color. Because you can look at history, and there's that old story about Sicilians. In Sicily, everybody used to be blonde, blue-eyed, and
really?
Can't remember the name of that group of people, but there was a group of warriors that conquered it at one time, and they were black.
Carthage?
And
Carthage?
they, this is from a movie that I'm quoting. The movie is, I'll think of the movie, True Romance. And he's telling the story about, it used to be everybody was blonde and blue-eyed, and they invaded, and they did so much fucking that the skin became a nice olive color, and they had black hair and broad facial features.
It's just whether or not the screwing was consensual or not.
Right. But even so, you got to think that there was some consensual stuff that was going on.
There might have been one or two, but if it's on a whole, if it's not, then
but
you got problems.
Now the Sicilians, are proud of their lineage and heritage, so much so that when in the Italian mob and stuff, if they can trace your lineage back to Sicily, that's a good thing. It's like, It's like, really, you guys are a bunch of mutts. I mean, you can't. I mean, even Asian races and everybody on this planet is in some way a mutt.
Mm.
I mean, my lineage is I'm Danish, which is where I get my height and build, and I'm Native American, and there's some other stuff in there. But my great grandmother, which I only met when I was really young. She was Indian.
Mm.
You know. So yeah.
I don't even know if we have enough we don't even have enough to show up on DNA records. We're supposed to have somebody, but was a Native American, but there's not enough there. Most of ours is all Scandinavian, Norwegian, but it's Swedish and a little bit of Finnish, and then English. Which is funny because our DNA says we're Welsh. On the DNA thing it says we're Welsh, and my dad's always said we're Welsh. But as I looked through our through Ancestry.com, I was looking through our family search file, and it seemed like mostly we're all Eastern,
right?
From the east side of England instead of the west side. So I don't know. Like from Essex, not from Wales. So I don't know. It's weird.
Right.
But what's really that app, that is a blast. If you get into that,
I already have. Yeah.
And you have family that's really done some extensive work, or it is fascinating. I mean,
well, you can blame the Mormons for that, man, because they have records going back so dang far.
Well, they just they've compiled them,
right?
But yeah,
But there's this another app that if you ever, I have it downloaded. It's familytree.com, I believe, or something like that, and it'll search around you in the area that you're at, where your phone's at, and it'll tell you people around you that are most likely related to you.
Yeah. if there's a match, like so you can sit in a room, and if you all turn that on, it'll tell you if you're related,
right,
and how you're related, and it's fascinating. But I love going. What I'll do is I'll start with a mom and a dad on that list, and then I'll go on the dad's side up and over to his mom and his dad, and then I'll go up, and I just keep going up one tree until it ends,
right,
and then I'll come back to the mom, and I'll try if there's any more on that one. If not, then I'll come back. I keep coming back and go, come back and go, come back and go, and oh man, that is fun. I've gotten back.
Right.
I gotten back to the 900s in England on one side, and I've gotten all the way back. Well, I've technically gotten to Adam in the Bible.
Right.
But that was fascinating.
Right.
And then we've got a lot of Eastern European blood, like Romanian, Slav and stuff like that in there that we didn't even know about in there, and then there's some Italian actually, and some Spanish, and then it's just like, what?
Right. I don't know.
And the Italian was able to trace her link because she was a princess, she was a noble woman, and her lineage went all the way back to Herod, the one from the Christmas story,
right,
and then his through his line was back to Adam. But I mean, it's like, wow, it's kind of crazy.
Yep.
I can spend hours just cruising up the line, seeing where people are from, and
right.
And then if somebody actually has done anything of note, people put Wikipedia histories and things like that on it, and you can sit there and read through them, and you're like, what? Really? My wife, she had some banker type of guy in Holland who was a duke in Holland, and it was kind of cool to he's got huge. He's very well known. I can't remember his name right now, but he was very, very well known.
Right.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many people just stop in a dead end after 1 or 2 generations, and there's nothing after that.
Right. It makes you wonder if things get lost in wartime or.
Oh yeah, and not only that, but we haven't gotten all the records.
Yeah.
They do everything off of most of it's all off census. And so if they didn't do an accurate census, or if you didn't participate in the census, then it's gone. In fact, I think on my dad's side, we had one relative living in the south and one living in the north at the time. Which is fascinating, because if they ever had gotten on the battlefield at the same time and killed, we wouldn't be here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird how history. I mean, the whole adage, butterfly wings, can change something. But yeah, if you were to change one little thing,
the butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would change everything. Well, anyway, have we run out of things to say?
Probably not.
Do we ever?
No. We need to come up with some more ideas for some podcasts. I've been wanting to do. We talk about stories all the time. I want to do. I say it, but then when I think about it, it's like, well, I'm really not that knowledgeable in some of this stuff. But I think it'd be fun to do just a Quentin Tarantino podcast.
Talking about
his writing, his movies, just kind of in general his storytelling.
Yeah, he. I find him fascinating because he, the way he writes, and also, if you ever listen to his story about, he was a failed actor, couldn't get a job to save his life. He had stories that he was writing, and scripts that he was writing, but he couldn't. He tried to shop those around to people, and not really getting any bites of it. And there was a story where he finally gets this job. It's just a small little part as an Elvis impersonator on the Golden Girls TV show.
Oh, really?
It's just a little background part where it's him and about 17 other Elvis impersonators dancing and stuff in the background, and he's doing his thing. And he got paid enough money for that to tide him over to where he took the Reservoir Dogs script and asked a bunch of favors, from a bunch of other actors, and actually put that movie together and was able to pay for a lot of the stuff himself. That Reservoir Dogs was shot in one frickin' building,
Yeah.
And, so it was a pretty easy set to, set up. And then at the same time, when he was putting that together, True Romance and Natural Born Killers with some other screenplays that he wrote that were actually picked up and put together.
I didn't know he wrote
Natural Born Killers. Yeah.
Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
Really?
That was his screenplay, and it was God, what's that guy's? He did Apocalypse Now. What's that guy's name? Famous director. Anyway, it was another director that actually did the movie.
Yeah.
But it was his script. That's why there's so many weird things that, there's that animated part of the movie and all kinds of different stuff. That's very Tarantino. And then True Romance is the same type of thing. True Romance, I'm convinced I don't have any proof of this, but the character he wrote, the Christian Slater role, I think that's Tarantino.
Mm.
He put himself into that movie because it's some comic book nerd that's runs a comic book shop, meets this prostitute, and becomes a tough guy, and kills a bunch of drug dealers and shit like
I'm
that.
trying to see if I remember that
and
movie.
he talks to Val Kilmer played Elvis.
Christian Slater. I was just, oh man, he's got a new movie on Netflix or one of those channels, and I was just not. I saw him and I was trying to remember who he was, and I couldn't remember his name.
Right.
It is really amazing how Hollywood chews you up and spits you out. They use you for a while, and then it's like all of a sudden it's like that guy was in everything, and then you never hear,
Right.
you don't see him for a long time, and then
Yeah. I mean, I think Tarantino is one of those people that he has enough money and stuff, and if he's smart about it, he can give himself a job forever.
true. Although I don't know, has he made a lot of money?
Good question.
I don't know if he has. I wonder if he's like Kevin Smith, where he makes a living,
Right.
and it's better than what most people make.
Right.
I don't know if it's his actors' livings. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, because his movies are amazing. They always get nominated, but do people go see him as much? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'll have to. I have to admit that the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I didn't really like it that much. Sorry, Quentin. I'm huge fan of everything else, but I guess the reason I didn't like it as much is and you could say this as a bad thing. He follows kind of a formula for most of his movies where like everybody dies, and it's extremely violent, et cetera, and people say that like it's a bad thing. I personally love that about the Tarantino movies, but the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood really didn't have that.
Right.
It was just a story.
I only watched half of it,
Mm-hmm.
and even though I could somewhat get into it, it was still kind of.
I mean, the conversations are great.
It's like a movie out of its time.
Right.
Like, this movie should have been made in the 70s with Chris Christopherson as Brad Pitt's character.
Right, and Sam Elliott is another one. Yeah.
And I don't know, you can almost pick almost anybody to be DiCaprio's character.
Right.
But Christopherson was really that kind of easy rider type of,
Mm-hmm.
sure, I'll do a job, sure, I'll work for you, whatever. And you could just, you see, now that I'm thinking about it, that's like really who Brad Pitt's character, I think, was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But he was too pretty for it. I don't know.
Right.
How does he? I mean, we see why he wasn't working all the time, because he has a temper, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But how is he not in front of the camera? Worst actors in the time got put in front of the camera because they could sell movies just by their looks.
Right.
Maybe if they had given him a horrible disfiguration due to a stunt gone wrong, would have been. I could have seen that, but I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
I didn't. I guess you know what I mean.
Well, I guess the thing about that story was it felt like a slice of life that we were just watching, and there was no real message or point.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess stories don't have to always have a message or point. But I don't know.
I don't know. He might have been talking about it.
It didn't.
You know,
It didn't. Like I said, it didn't feel like. Because I mean, he did the same thing in Inglorious Bastards, where he, it was a slice of history, but he changed it to where all the Nazis were wiped out in a horrible, glorious fire. And it's like, even though he changed history, and one part of my brain is screaming, no, that's not what happened. The other part of my brain is like, yeah, fucking die.
And to me, what makes his movies so good compared to Hollywood is the characters are always so
fleshed out.
Not just fleshed out, but like kooky or not kooky. I don't know how to. There's just something.
Well,
completely different about him.
I can tell you.
Think of Christoph Waltz's character in Glorious Bastard. That there was just a little bit of maniac in him, a little bit of
Well,
and that's not just because he was a Nazi. That's because it's the way he wrote the characters.
Oh yes, and one of the things that and I've talked about this before is sometimes you'll read or you'll watch a TV show, or you'll read a book, or you'll see a movie, and all of the characters have the same personality. Like I always, even though I liked the show to a point, it annoyed me in the fact that Gilmore Girls was a TV show that ran a long time there, but if you watch it through a certain lens, every one of those characters, male or female, all have the exact same sarcastic personality, and there's not one person that's different in the entire script. And it's one of the things that's great about Tarantino. I mean, just look at in Pulp Fiction, John Travolta and Samuel Jackson talking in a fucking car. Their personalities are completely different, and it feels like two people talking to each other genuinely about Amsterdam.
Right. And then juxtapose those two to Tim Roth's character.
Right.
Like, bam, off the wall, over here, over there, and that was the same way with, for me, The Hateful Eight.
Yeah. Great characters.
I really love The Hateful Eight. Wow.
I mean, the letter, the Lincoln letter, I mean, fucking genius. That nigga almost broke my jaw. It's like, wow.
Well, just
if there's anything that's wrong with that letter, I'm going to let him beat you to death.
Yeah, I mean, and he got all these legends in Hollywood. There are all these, and then he brought in that woman.
Oh, yeah,
the main girl,
right?
The girl,
and she's the one that won an award.
And she just stole
the show.
Every scene.
Right.
I mean, she is just amazing in that role. But you go from like pitying her to totally hating her. I mean, it's like the transition that goes on from one side to the other. It's like and I didn't see any of those type of characters.
I think
in Hollywood. And that's what I had a problem with it.
Right. Well, this is it's funny because I just thought of this. I think, if you were to compare and contrast Kevin Smith versus, Quentin Tarantino and their writing style and stuff, because now I don't know if this is true or not because I've never seen how he reacts to people on set. But I sometimes think that Tarantino gives he gives a script, of course, and he has different characters, and he actually has different actors in mind for playing those characters. Because, like, one famous story was in Dusk Till Dawn, the cowboy cop that gets shot at the very beginning of the movie, that character or that actor, he actually, when he wrote the script for Dusk Till Dawn, he wanted that actor to play that part, And luckily for him, time had passed to where that guy was no longer famous. So he's really just bringing somebody back into,
I think Hateful Eight was written with Kurt
Russell in mind.
The whole way through.
But but I think, once again, I don't know for sure, but he lets the actors flesh out the character.
Oh yeah.
Versus somebody like Kevin Smith, I've heard he wants you to stick to the fucking script because that's what he wrote.
Those are his words. They're precious.
And so when you look at a great movie like Clerks, if you look, a lot of those characters, once again, are just kind of like the Gilmore Girls. They have the same damn personality.
Right. Oh yeah, it's because they're all his words.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking with Tarantino with in his movies was that you just get this feeling of it's almost like the who are the two?
It's got to be a collaboration, man.
Who are those two brothers that do the writing?
Are you talking about the Farrelly? Not the comedy.
Not the comedy brothers.
The one that did The Matrix?
No, not the Wachowski brothers.
Oh, okay.
The ones that did True Grit.
Oh shit! What's their name?
Coen brothers.
Coen, yeah.
They do that too. They. It's almost like they think of the sound that a
actor.
No, not the sound that the character will sound like, and then write around that.
Right.
Like they wanted. There's a speech pattern or a sound that is the character, and then they find the person to fit that. It's kind of you can see that in that movie very much because I think they were very specific with the girl.
But I think the
way that she talked.
But there's writers like Kevin Smith who I think over time he's learned his lesson as far as making the actors stick to a script because when you get into the later movies like Zack and Miri Make a Porno, fantastic movie. He allowed the actors to kind of do their thing because it's hard to write stuff for Seth Rogen because Seth Rogen is Seth Rogen. There's no way to change that, and you wouldn't want him to deliver some line that was written for him. You just give him a general outline and say, okay, go. And I think it was, I think his later films don't feel as restrictive. I mean, his early films are funny as fuck, but the later films, it looks like the actors are having a lot more leeway and fun. Because like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the rumor I heard was all the lines Will Ferrell has in the movie, Will Ferrell wrote them all.
Oh, really?
Even the name, his name is Marshall, Will, and Holly. And Marshall, Will, and Holly is the characters from Land of the Lost. It's Marshall, Will, and Holly.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I love it.
So everything in that movie, every line he has in that movie, he wrote it.
I would venture to say, from listening to Kevin talk over the years in his podcasts and things, that it almost feels like in those earlier movies, he got out everything he wanted to say.
Yeah.
Now he just makes movies that he wants to make, but he might not have anything to say.
Right.
And so he still wants to make a movie about this or make something. And so then it's like, well, sure, here's the guidelines. They're more like guidelines instead of rules.
Yeah. Because I think he learned a lesson because I've heard him talk about that movie Cop Out, where he was trying to force Bruce Willis to do old-fashioned Bruce Willis lines. Could you say it this way? Kind of like when you said it in Die Hard, and Bruce Willis is like, no.
I'm not that actor
I'm
anymore.
not that guy.
Yeah. Although he did get him to do one.
Right.
You hear that?
What
so he did a stand-up. So Kevin would do these stand-ups where he'd get up and he pretty much has like He's got like 4 or 5 jokes he's going to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But the joke comes at the end of a half-hour story that weeds you through one story from another story to another story to get you to the punchline of his joke. And he talks about how horrible an experience shooting Cop Out was because of Bruce Willis.
Right.
He says, but there's one little shining moment from that movie that he'll always remember. And there's a scene in the hotel room, and he was trying to get Bruce Willis to deliver it a certain way, and he just wouldn't do it because he's just Bruce Willis now. He just comes in, this is how I do things now, this is me. And he kept on doing it over and over. You could see he was getting all pissed off at him. And he went over and he sat down and said, he told him his experience of growing up watching him on Moonlighting.
I liked Moonlighting a lot.
And how important David Addison was to his life and blah, blah, blah and all this stuff. And he's like, the way David would say this line is magic, would be magic. And he's like, he actually did it. It's the one time in the whole movie he actually gave me any type of what I asked for, you know. But, you know, he's like, I'm the guy who comes on and says, okay, we're gonna shoot the guys in the car over there. We're gonna film them in the car talking. Okay, ready, action. You know, and Bruce comes. I go over to talk to him, and he'll say stuff like, "So are we shooting on this size camera? Or are we doing exposure this or this? How far is this? Blah 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 blah. All this technical stuff." And he's like, "The camera's over there." You know. So he's like, I have to at least say that I'm not the master of my craft that way.
Right.
And so because of that, I think he has gotten to the point where he's realized that sometimes, you know, you can't just tell these people something, you know. And he ran into an immovable object with Bruce Willis, and I think that really changed how he made movies. It maybe shook him a little bit too. But that was the first one he ever did that wasn't his writing either.
Correct.
So he really didn't care as much.
Right. He was just the director.
And I think that freed him up because now he really likes doing TV. He's been doing a lot of the superhero shows for the CW.
Yeah.
The Superwoman, Supergirl, and the Flash episodes.
Yep.
And he really likes doing that.
Right.
Because in his words, he says the magic of the product comes in the editing. So he's one of those guys who'll go, let's shoot a scene a couple times, or we'll shoot it, and who cares if it wasn't exactly right? I can edit it right.
Right.
And so
makes sense. But you know, there's other actor writers that I think are amazing. Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton. I think Billy Bob Thornton might be one of those people you're like, he can write?
He can write.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think he could write until you watch Sling Blade.
Ben and Matt, they can write.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite writers, Clint Eastwood, motherfucker can write.
Yeah,
and I put him and Stallone is in there too. I don't know why Schwarzenegger never got into writing. I guess he's just not any good at it.
I don't know. I don't know if he has desire to do it.
Probably not. He has gotten more comfortable as an actor.
Schwarzenegger, if you ever listen to any of his interviews that he does, when he's promoting the film, he's promoting the film.
Right.
It's a business.
Yeah.
He's not there to make craft like some of these other people are. He's not there, I think, to do. I think it's a job. It's his business.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know if he never got in the movies because he loved it. He got in the movies because
they wanted him.
They want him, and he could make a lot of money.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, come on, his first movie where they dubbed him.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Although
Hercules
I mean,
in the Park. Is that what it is? Hercules in the Park.
Hercules in New York.
Hercules in New York. That's what it is. Yeah, I'm thinking of Central Park. But yeah.
But yeah, its actual first movie was the documentary Pumping Iron.
Oh, Pumping Iron. Yeah.
Which is still has the best lines in it ever. When I'm up on stage and I'm posing, feels like I'm coming.
Feels like I'm coming.
When I'm, lifting weights and I get that pump, feels like I'm coming. So basically, I'm coming all day.
So yeah,
best lines ever.
Schwarzenegger.
But yeah, I mean, I think Clint Eastwood. I mean, his writing is just. Have you ever seen Mystic River?
Actually, no. That's one I haven't seen.
You should watch it. It's
I've never seen Mystic
amazing.
River.
I mean, he's not in that one. Most of the stuff he's in. The Mule was really good.
Mule was all right.
Gran Torino was
Gran Torino's
amazing.
Really good. His two
the war movies, the
World War II movies.
Yeah, the
Sands of Iwo Jima and Letters from Iwo Jima. Yeah,
those were amazing.
Those are really good.
But yeah.
Little known ones that probably most people haven't seen. Honky Tonk Man. That's a sad movie. That's a deep one.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
Heard of it. But another one that I watched just the other day. This is it's funny because I type into Amazon Prime Clint Eastwood just so I can see what they have.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll just watch some old Dirty Harry flick or whatever. And I'm flipping through there, and this movie comes up called Bloodwork. And I've never even heard of Bloodwork. And it's based on a book written by somebody else.
Right.
But it's a cop show where he's a cop, and he's kind of this head detective in the murder thing, and he's tracking down a serial killer who's writing notes, just like the old Zodiac killer. He's writing notes, leaving them at the scene of crimes, and they're kind of taunting him, And so at one point he's at a scene of a murder, and he's looking around the people, all the looky-loos and all the people, and he sees this pair of Converse shoes because they found a footprint at this place that has a Converse shoe print. And he sees these Converse shoes, and he goes, hey, and it scares the guy, and the guy starts running.
Oh, yes.
And he chases the guy. And
that one's very good.
And he ends up having a heart attack as he's chasing this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He does end up shooting the guy, but he loses the guy. But
I thought that was the movie you were thinking of.
And I had never seen that movie. I never even heard of it. Man, that was good.
Jeff Daniels.
Yes.
Really good. It's a great movie.
It was.
That was right around that time he was doing The Line of Fire.
Right.
Bloodwork.
It was so good. I mean, I was really, really impressed by that.
Yeah, that's a really good one. There's some that kind of get shuffled out.
But now when I type in to Amazon,
in the Garden of Love and Evil, most people don't realize that he did that.
As the writer?
He was the director.
Oh.
Who
was in it?
Kevin Spacey.
Oh.
That's a really good one.
I should go and look that up. But it's funny because now when I type in Clint Eastwood into search bars or whatever, almost everything that pops up I've seen.
Yeah. High Plains Drifter. That's Josie Wales.
Well, as far as the No Name Man series,
mm-hmm.
of the spaghetti westerns, High Plains Drifter was my favorite.
High Plains Drifter, yes.
I mean, there was 3 or 4 different movies that he did where they had no name. They called him Preacher. And but in that High Plains Drifter, that it's such a overly simplistic story, but man, it's good. I mean, straight up a revenge story, kind of a ghost story at the same time. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He just
you
literally
can't tell if it is a ghost story.
He literally goes into a town, fucks it up completely, including all the people that are living there. You know, all the innocent people. You know, I mean, he just fucks with their life and, you know, completely destroys it, really. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's for a good cause, you know. You know, he was the guy that was killed in the middle of their town. You know, he might hold a grudge.
Could maybe.
So, yeah, it was really good. Well, that's my favorite of his spaghetti westerns.
A lot of people don't know about, like, Paint Your Wagon.
Yeah, that's one of my. That's a really good one.
That's a musical.
Right.
Honky Tonk Man's a musical.
I did not know that. Does he sing?
Yeah.
Does he sing well? Because I know he
enough.
He actually played the guitar and sang for Gran Torino.
Yeah. So he's competent. So you know that he's written all the theme songs for his movies, right? So yeah, the main theme song for most of his movies he wrote. So he's accomplished. He's very good. He just doesn't have the strongest singing voice. No. And I think he always wanted to be a singer.
Right.
And that's what the Honky Tonk Man's really about. It's about that guy that's lived on the road, mm-hmm. singing in the dive bars, in the honky tonks, trying to get to the Grand Ole Opry.
But he's not good enough.
But he's just not good enough. And it's like, it's a really good movie.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, it's one that he did that he was in that's really good. What's the one with Kevin Costner where he takes that little boy?
Oh yeah, that's but Eastwood just wrote it. He wasn't.
He was in it. He was the cop.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was the cop that was chasing him down.
Yeah, because I mean they spend so much time on Costner.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to remember that. But yeah, he wrote that. I can't remember what this called.
Can't remember that. People are probably young.
I mean, the one thing I remember about that movie is there's that scene where the kid goes, "Do you actually like her?" And he's like, "Of course I do. I kissed her ass, didn't I?"
He's only been in 72 films.
Yeah.
It seems like it should have been in so many more. A Perfect World.
Yeah.
You know, it's one I haven't seen is The Bridges on Madison County.
I have.
Madison County.
Yep. It's kind of interesting to watch him do romance. But yeah, I've seen it.
Well, he's done I mean, you could go all the way back to The Beguiled. That's almost a romance in a way, but it's kind of his old type of romance where the girls are always after him, you know. If you haven't seen Two Mules for Sister Sarah, that's a classic. Kelly's Hero is probably one of my favorite. Might be my favorite. Yeah. And then another little one that most people don't ever see that I think might be one is Coogan's Bluff.
Yep.
I love that one.
But yeah.
Where the Eagles Dare.
I really think that, you know...
Play Misty for me.
If it wasn't... Yeah, that was Sandra Locke or whatever her name was.
Mm-hmm. She's in a lot of his movies.
Well, yeah, because they were married for a short time. But it's funny because I really think Hollywood survives because there's these writer actors.
Oh,
I don't think Hollywood survive if they had to live on just writers, because I don't think they can find the talent. You know.
Holy crap! It's just funny to go down through the list, you know, and you're just like, I think I've seen almost everything he's ever made.
Oh yeah, I know. I like I said, I go down the list too, and it's like, holy crap.
Another one that's one of my favorites, Thunderfoot and Lightfoot. Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
The Eiger Sanction.
Yep.
The Gauntlet. You remember that one?
Yep.
The
Bus. Yep. Escape from Alcatraz.
Bronco Billy. Mm-hmm. Firefox.
Let's not forget the boxing movies. You know, Every Which Way You Can and Any Which Way.
Oh yeah, those are the best.
I actually have both of those.
Left Turn, Clyde.
Yep.
And then Then there's got to be two that the Pink Cadillac was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The Rookie.
The Rookie was great, in my opinion. I love Charlie Sheen.
In the Line of Fire.
Charlie Sheen has such a strong personality versus, Clint Eastwood. That contrast between the two of them was perfect.
But Heartbreak Ridge.
Amazing.
And then the one that I think most people don't know about is because it put two of my favorites together. And they played so well off each other that was just...
City Heat.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, City Heat's were great.
City Heat.
But they've... it's funny because...
I needed that to be a series. They needed that to be...
They wanted to do a movie together forever.
They needed to do another one. They needed to have done like 3 or 4 of those. Right. You know what they could have done? What they should have done? They should have just done a series where they played their then their grandkids in the 50s, like a Joe Friday type of thing. What was that? What was that show? Dragnet. Dragnet. And then they should have done like a Starsky and Hutch type of one. And then they should have, that would have been, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That makes me sad now thinking about that. Because those two played off each other so well. I mean, like, you wouldn't think they would be that great, but
yeah, I mean, it's...
And that's another one.
Burt Reynolds is another... I kind of wish he would write, but I don't know if he ever did, but, man... I'd say, for me, his crowning achievement was Sharky's Machine.
Sharky's Machine?
That movie is amazing.
Sharky's Machine is pretty good.
It set records for so many different things. Because, you know about Sharky's Machine, right?
No. Tell me why I looked up.
Well, Sharky's Machine, the reason that I would say it set records is because the bad guy in it is played by a actual stuntman who has the records for the highest free fall, and he also invented a thing for that movie called the decelerator. You know what the decelerator is? Yeah. And so for that movie, he made this thing called the decelerator because there's a scene where Sharky's standing on a balcony, and he's just thrown the bad guy over the balcony, and the bad guy's hanging onto the balcony. And he says to the bad guy, great line, says, if you push hard enough, you might hit the pool.
Oh, yeah.
And during that scene, or before that scene was shot, the stunt guy, the guy that's hanging onto the rail, asked Burt Reynolds, do you think when I fall off of the rail, should I pull my pistol and shoot at you? And Burt Reynolds says, why don't you just concentrate on not dying? And so in that scene, he pushes off the rail, and it was one of the first movie scenes where they could shoot it from top down.
Right.
Because, they didn't have blue screens and stuff like that, but they had that. So this was the first time they could do the decelerator thing. So he pushes off, and he pulls his gun, and he starts shooting as he's going down. And it's just the best shot ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so he falls off that building, and and then later he jumps off of it again to get the scene where the body hits the bag or whatever, and it set records for the highest free fall and all kinds of stuff. But that movie, Sharky's Machine, is I think that was the best thing that, besides Smokey and the Bandit, that Burt Reynolds did.
There's a movie called The End.
Great movie, hilarious.
I think
Dom DeLuise.
Funniest things I've ever seen.
Well, what's funny is if my mom and dad, we went to watch that in the theater, and I wasn't there, but mom and dad went to that theater, and if you've seen that movie, the first half of the movie is a depressing look at somebody who wants to kill themselves, and it's not until he gets into the funny farm that he meets Dom DeLuise and things become funny. My mom and dad said they were this close to walking out of the fucking theater because that movie was so depressing.
So depressing.
And then all of a sudden Dom DeLuise shows up and it's hilarious from that point on. But the first half of that movie is the most depressing thing you'll ever watch in your life. And so mom and dad were this close to walking out. What are you reading now?
I was just trying to think of. Oh, it's Heat. That's what I'm thinking of. That's the one reason in Vegas. He's the PI in Vegas.
Right.
Heat.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that one a lot.
Are you looking at Burt Reynolds stuff now?
Yeah. It's just sad that some of these guys got wasted on stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he made a lot of movies. It's just sometimes they made the wrong movie. They got typecast. There's so much stuff that he should have made. He made a movie a long time ago. If you really want to, it's called Sam Whiskey. And I think it's this one where he, yep. he's trying to, somebody robbed this bank, and then their heist is to put the money back. This widow wants to
Return the
fix it, and it's set in the Wild West, and it's an old time bank / prison, and the way they go about doing this it's brilliant. It's just
cool. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Something like that, or they rob it, but the way they rob it is, but it's, I think she wants to fix things. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but it is a good movie. That's a good one. Yeah, there's
Burt Reynolds.
there's characters like that.
Well, it's funny because nowadays you say these names to people that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel so old because nobody knows who the hell you're talking about.
I went and tried on these shoes. They're called Hoka. And the thing about it is the shoe has this crazy sole on it, right?
Right.
That come up like this.
Weird. Is it supposed to be good for your feet or something?
Oh my gosh, it was the most cushy, comfy thing I've ever put my foot in. when you walked on the heel, it just like what Laura said, I had her try on a different type style.
It's like
of
walking on a waterbed.
She said it felt like the top of my feet, like there's nothing there. It's like walking on air.
Right.
But the shoe, the way it was, not only did it have this like come up here like this
Mm-hmm.
in the middle, but the top of it also looked very nursing home,
Right.
nurse's shoe. And when I stood up, the only thing that went through my mind the whole time when I was wearing that was I was thinking of Young Frankenstein.
Banana
and I turned to the girl who said, I was like, "Do you know this movie?" And she's like,
No, when you even mention Mel Brooks, nobody knows who the hell you're talking
stuff
about.
like that. But it was just like, I couldn't buy him. I couldn't buy him because of but yeah, nobody knows that who
No,
these people
nobody
are
knows who
anymore.
Mel Brooks is.
Although what's great though is I was saying I enjoy watching those reaction videos, and part of the ones that I've been watching lately are people reacting to things like they've never seen Blazing Saddles,
Jesus.
and they and watching them react to that movie is hilarious.
True comedic genius.
Yeah.
Because not only was that written by Mel Brooks, but it was co-written by Richard Pryor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking genius.
Yeah.
Putting those two together in a room, holy shit. I mean, wow.
Mm-hmm. And there's somebody who made quite a bit of movies, and a lot of his movies are underrated too. Richard Pryor movies.
I love Richard Pryor movies.
And
I loved it when he was with
there's so
Gene
much
Wilder.
of his comedy movies
Mhm.
that are just straight up comedy. But then there's did all these other slice of life type of movies that are like really, they're really kind of hard hitting
Mhm.
type of slice of, with a lot of comedy intermixed because
Right.
it's who he is. But they talk a lot about the problems of the times and
Mhm.
what guys had to go through to get jobs and stuff. And they're really good movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite comedians to listen to stand up.
Yeah. Because what's really great is, I mean, you know, the test of time. You know, when you go back and you listen to him, Eddie Murphy, any of those old stand-ups, it's still funny.
Oh yeah, I have 3 of his comedy routines on my phone.
Right.
Him, I have some of the old Steve Harvey old stuff.
Right.
Bill Engvall.
Bill Engvall.
Here's a sign.
He hangs out in Park City. Did you know that? Yeah.
Some of his stuff. Some Robin Williams did a set in 2002. He did an HBO special.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that was when he did the how Scots created golf.
Right. I've seen it. Yeah.
Gosh, that might be one of the fun. And for somebody that loves black people and loves everything, he cannot do a black accent to save his life.
That's probably a good thing.
Well, yeah, but it's funny that you hear him and it's like, wow, it's horrible. It's like that's the whitest guy you ever heard doing a black accent.
He did that in that movie Good Morning Vietnam, because
Mm-hmm.
he was trying to talk about when he doing the condom thing. He's like, just needs to cover the tip, baby.
Yeah, right? And it's horrible, right? He's really bad. I mean, it's funny stick. It's funny,
Right.
but his accent is just like,
Yeah.
but man, his Scottish and his French are just,
Right.
whoo. His Scottish stuff, fuck no. He's like, we'll take a stick and we'll hit a ball with it.
Right.
Oh, big ball? Fuck no. It's gotta be a tiny little ball that you just whack at and whack at. In fact, we'll call it a stroke, because it's what you feel like you're having every time you miss.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it'd be fun to do a couple of podcasts where we kind of,
We just did.
well, I mean, try to dial, really get into some of these guys'
Style.
even more in depth. I don't know. I mean, which what it would mean for me to do is actually go back, watch a couple of the movies,
Right.
and then take some notes. And what I thought about doing is do like an interview style, maybe back and forth. Or I thought about just doing a show where maybe I interview you about Quentin Tarantino stuff.
Yeah.
Because he definitely remembers more things about him and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
I like this stuff. I just...
Well,
I've seen a lot of movies. I just don't remember a lot of...
One of my favorite things about Tarantino, and when you're listening to any of his interviews, is, they ask him, so who influenced your writing style, and, what was the big, what do you read, and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, I used to just go to a lot of movies. That's his answer. He's like, I love movies. When I write scripts, I'm not writing a book. I'm writing a movie. And, I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's probably my problem, too. That's the way I write.
Right.
Is I write it as a movie.
Right.
And then I thought about doing the story I was doing as a art novel, novella, where it was more like maybe like 5-6 pages of story, then an illustration.
Right.
10 pages of story and illustration. And then when I tried to actually write
Mm-hmm.
a novel format, it was very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But just to write a scene, how I saw it in my mind playing out in a movie, was a lot easier than descriptive story and set and scene, and then making all that sound coherent and making it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, though, it's Because what we're doing with Shattered Time more than any other book is the process is collaborative. Because you know, the way the script's written, you know, I give a suggestion of what the scene should look like. You're doing the rest.
Yeah.
You know,
Cinematography.
mostly what I did was put together an outline that's coherent and, you know, takes you from point A to all the way to point Z. You know, and so yeah. But there's things that I would love to see brought to actual life on a movie screen. I mean, cinematically, I can't think of something that would look better on a screen than Shattered Time. Could you imagine a movie series based on this story?
It'd be awesome, though. It'd be like, the way I think about it is, it's Game of Thrones, Westworld,
etc. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of some modern ideas, modern ways of, because I think Westworld would probably be the closest when you're going back and forth, because they went from Old West to modern to futuristic modern, and then even threw in the samurai stuff there in season 2.
Right.
That was cool. And then the amount of things that we'd be throwing in. And in fact, the amount of things that we could throw in that we haven't even,
But just like, you know,
that we haven't even thought about throwing in.
right. But just
Well, like I did that one thing. I talked about doing that preacher from like the South. That whole maybe.
right. Kind of has that. What the hell is that movie? Quick and the Dead feel. Yeah.
I think of it more like something more like that In the Garden of
Good and
Good and Evil, but something like in the 1910, 1920, where he's using maybe like old an old fort, an old Civil War fort that's now all grown over and
Right.
hidden in the hollows down there and stuff like that.
Right.
And then, because my mind, I always think of the humidity, so I wanted the idea of him with the
Towel.
Kleenex, you know,
Right.
wiping his, you know, hanky,
Right.
wiping himself down with, and
Yep. Yeah.
that was, you know, that was straight out of movies,
Yeah.
straight out of all types of movies I've seen during that time period.
Right. And you know, it's funny because you know,
I've seen too many I can't even think
you
of.
pick any
names.
genre, and there's things in different genres that stand out to me that makes it feel like that genre. Like in every military movie, for some reason, there is always a scene where somebody's either jumping out of a helicopter, not like high up, the helicopter lands and there's a guy jumping out, or a truck pulls up and the gate swings down and the guy's jumping out, and the shot always is of their boots hitting the ground.
Boots hitting the ground.
Either
yeah.
a mud puddle or
And
ground.
I put that
or
on the very first
on
page of
everything.
Shattered Time.
And that is in every military movie ever.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is about a boot hitting the ground that is so iconic that they have to have it in every movie.
I think what it does is without showing, it shows the pace and the go 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 go, and all you see is boop 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 boop. But if you try to film that back, it's clunkier.
Right.
You don't get the bam, bam. Plus there's the, I think there's the, I don't know, is it the ominous feel of it, or is it the, I don't know what it is, because usually it's always the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually German soldiers that we see that out of.
And what's really funny, like in every Western that I've ever seen, there's always a scene where they're showing the country and there's some people riding on horses, maybe not, but there's that Desert Shimmer. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the mirage effect.
The mirage, yeah, the heat waves.
Yeah, there's always that in a Western.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which Western. Everyone.
That's true.
So, let's see here.
Yeah, that was a good Western. Did you see that one with
horror movies? There's
with
always some stupid
Pierce
girl.
Brosnan and Liam Neeson. Something Falls.
This was a Western?
Yeah, it was a Western they did a while ago. It was really good.
Neeson.
Yeah, Liam Neeson and Pierce Brosnan.
In a Western?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
It's really good. It's
But in a horror movie, let's see here. What's a common thing that you see in every horror movie? Oh yeah, blood. lots and lots of blood.
you know what you see? A full moon and fog. Or like low level fog, like on the ground.
I don't know.
Seraphim Falls, if I'm right. I think it's called Seraphim Falls.
Huh. Well, now I have to look that up. Did Liam Neeson do an accent, or did he just try to do American? Or
he was just I think it was just his normal voice.
Because his normal voice is an accent. But he does a pretty good Southern accent. Because like in that movie Next of Kin with Patrick Swayze, he plays the older brother, and he sounds like he's from the South. But his actual voice, he sounds like he's the Lucky Charms guy.
I could have sworn it was him. Man, can you believe he got a voice credit for Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker? I didn't think it was this old. Maybe it wasn't him. I thought it was him.
Was it Pierce Brosnan?
I know it was Pierce Brosnan. Oh yeah, it was. Wow, that was 2006.
What's it called?
Seraphim Falls.
And it's Pierce Brosnan and Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's Seraphim. Seraphim.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts off with one guy just being hunted by the other guy, and then you find out why and all that stuff. But it's really good. And you saw that the Diablo Kid, is that what it's called? What's Scott Eastwood? He did a great little movie with that has Walter Goggins in it with him. Oh, that was a good one. How has he done so much stuff? Oh, Diablo. It's just Diablo. If you want to see a good Western, check out Diablo. That's a good one. He was in Fury.
Fury with
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
What did he play in Fury?
Must have been one of the guys in the tank with him.
No.
No?
You're talking about Liam Neeson, right?
No.
Oh.
Scott Eastwood.
Oh, Scott. Yeah, he was one of the. Yeah. Okay. I thought you were.
Yeah, no. He did that movie. He did a movie called Diablo.
Mm.
If you haven't seen that one,
Oh, I did see Fury. And
that's definitely worth seeing. Diablo.
Fury was fantastic. Anyway,
Maybe we should do a show like that too. We should do a things you might not have seen list.
right? Yeah. I mean, it's funny when I do have time at home. We'll just start randomly searching through Amazon Prime and stuff. And
I'd rather watch something new and different than a rerun.
Right.
And I usually would rather watch a movie than a TV show.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm always looking for stuff, and so because of that, I find little movies like that Diablo that most people probably haven't seen.
But one of the things that I do that most people don't, because you can search your favorite actor and find a bunch of stuff, but I search favorite writers and stuff like that, because like one of my favorite writers of books is Michael Crichton, and you can type his name into Amazon Prime, and there's tons of movies that were made out of that his books were made into.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them are good, because it's funny because on some things like with Jurassic Park, his hand was involved. He helped, but then there was stuff that he just sold, like it was
Out of time.
we'll give you $1 million or blah blah blah. Yeah, timelines.
Timelines.
Yeah, he just kind of just sold that to him, like, here, yeah, do whatever the fuck you want, and that's what they did. They did whatever the fuck they wanted. It's like, well, thanks for ruining that book.
Yep, that was a good book.
It was a great book. And then one that I haven't seen as a movie yet, but I think would be a great movie is Prey. 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 And if you haven't read it, it's a great book to read. It's a Michael Crichton, and it's about these little nano robots.
Oh,
So these guys go to find these missing people, some doctors that disappeared at a lab. And so they go to this lab and they find out that, so they invented this nanotechnology, these little robots that can repair you from the inside. I guess if I remember right, the robots basically become self-aware. And so it's this, and they can multiply. And so, there's a
good alien scene.
Well, there's this scene where, when they get there, basically the thing that they're scared of is you see this big shadow moving across the sky. It's all these little robots, moving like a flock of birds, and so they're microscopic. There's a scene in the book where they're in this car and they're trying to keep the things from getting inside the car, and you try to but they can get through the air ducts and everything, so there's no way to escape the damn things. But yeah, it's a really good.
I thought you were thinking of the Liam Neeson movie with the wolves.
Oh,
I think that one's called Prey.
Yeah, that is actually.
That one was all right.
But yeah, But yeah, Michael Crichton, I think he has some great books. But I mean, The Great Train Robbery has been made and remade as a movie several times.
Great Train Robbery?
Yeah,
I haven't read that one.
It's one of his first books he ever wrote. Yeah, they've done one way back when. There's one that was filmed right when color was invented, and then they filmed another one. Just recently, I can't remember who the actors are in it, but it's The Great Train Robbery based on the Michael Crichton book. But the book is only about yay thick.
Yeah, his books aren't.
No, his
usually
books
very
aren't
thick.
Yeah, but it's a good read. It's about a train robbery.
Is it as good as is it Tough Guys? Is that the one that had Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster?
Yeah, when they're living in a retirement home.
No, they just got out of prison for bank robbery, for stealing train robbery.
Right.
And then they try to go straight.
Right, but I thought at one point Burt Lancaster's character is in a retirement home.
Oh, he might
and
be.
And he goes up and he's complaining to somebody about the food, and he's like, there's everything's mush. And they're like, well, most of these people have no teeth. And he goes, he's like, I have teeth. I want to chew.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was 3.5 hours. Almost.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up on that. But yeah,
we can do another one this week.
Yeah, we can.
But I think it'd have to be Thursday, but it would have to be earlier in the morning,
Well,
earlier in the day.
I mean, I'm off till next Tuesday.
Well, she works, I think, at 3.
Okay.
So if we wanted to do something, we'd have to do it around noon or around 11 in the morning.
You're talking about Thursday?
I think it's Thursday. We can go down and
What's
we can go down and talk to her and find out what her
anything-
schedule is.
Anything going on Monday or Tuesday?
Oh, next week.
Next week?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we can figure it out. So yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for
Well,
hanging out with
Thank you
us.
for listening, if you are listening. Burnoutstudios.com. Like, share, subscribe,
Yeah.
all of the above.
Hopefully we weren't too bad for everybody.
But I mean,
So I know I have family that might listen here and there, and they have some sensitive ears at times.
well, yeah. But I mean, stories
But
being what they are, people talk like humans talk.
they don't talk that way.
Right.
That's all right.
Well, they'll get used to it.